I stared at my reflection in the mirror, methodically applying concealer to hide the dark circles under my eyes. Tonight was the annual Armstrong Family Foundation Gala, and Mother's words from our earlier phone call still rang in my ears. Don't embarrass us tonight, okay? My name is Linda, and I've spent 34 years being the family disappointment. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. Your dress is ready, Ms. Armstrong. The hotel concierge called through the door. I'd booked a suite to prepare for the gala, knowing I couldn't handle getting ready at my parents' mansion while watching everyone fawn over my sister Jordan. Thank you, just leave it there. I waited until the footsteps faded before retrieving the garment bag. My phone buzzed. A text from Tatum. You sure about this? I typed back. No turning back now. The black dress I'd chosen was elegant, but understated. Exactly what Mother hated. She'd already sent 3 passive-aggressive texts about how I should wear something more festive like Jordan's designer gown. Another buzz. This time from Emma, my cousin. I'm here if you need backup. I smiled, remembering how Emma had reached out 6 months ago after years of separation. We'd both been cast as the family black sheep, though for different reasons. Her crime was marrying for love instead of status. Mine was refusing to play my assigned role of invisible supporter. The suite's phone rang. Ms. Armstrong, your sister is asking to come up. My stomach clenched. Tell her I'm not ready yet. Linda! Jordan's voice carried through the phone. Don't be difficult. Mother sent me to help with your makeup. I'm 34, Jordan. I can do my own makeup. God, you're so sensitive. This is why Mother worries about you. Just let me in. I closed my eyes, remembering last year's gala. Jordan had announced her luxury skincare line, funded by our parents' small loan of $200,000. Meanwhile, when I'd asked for help starting my tech company years ago, Father had lectured me about fiscal responsibility. Fine, I said finally. Give me 5 minutes. I quickly pulled up my banking app and took screenshots, then sent them to Tatum with instructions. My hands shook slightly as I typed, upload these to the presentation after slide 15. The door burst open before I could finish. Jordan swept in wearing a rose gold sequined gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Oh, honey, she said, eyeing my simple black dress. That's so basic. Mother will be devastated. I like it. You always do this, she sighed, pulling out her makeup kit. Every event, you deliberately choose the most boring option. It's like you want to fade into the background. If she only knew. Not everyone needs to be the center of attention, Jordan. She rolled her eyes while applying bright pink lipstick. Speaking of attention, Mother wants you sitting at the main table tonight, next to that venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. Why? Because you're the only single one left, silly. He's divorced, but his family owns half of San Francisco or something. She paused, studying my face. You're not getting any younger, Linda, and it's not like you have much going on career-wise. I bit back a laugh. My little freelance work, as Mother called it, had quietly grown into a multi-million-dollar tech empire. But they'd never bothered to ask. I'll sit wherever I'm told, I said quietly. That's the spirit, Jordan beamed, missing my sarcasm entirely. Oh, and Mother wants you to say a few words during my announcement tonight. What announcement? Can't tell you yet, but it's huge. You'll be so excited to be part of it. She checked her phone. Car's here, ready to go. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. The woman staring back wasn't the meek daughter they expected anymore. Tonight, everything would change. Ready, I said. As we rode to the venue, Jordan chatted about her skincare line's upcoming expansion. I nodded at appropriate intervals while checking my phone. Tatum had confirmed the slides were updated. Emma texted that she was already there, watching Mother direct the staff like a general commanding troops. You seem distracted, Jordan said suddenly. Just nervous about public speaking. She patted my hand condescendingly. Don't worry, we'll make it quick. Nobody expects much from you anyway. The car pulled up to the Grand Hotel entrance. Through the window, I could see photographers lined up, waiting to capture the Armstrong family's perfect facade. Showtime, Jordan sang, reaching for the door handle. Showtime indeed. They had no idea what was coming. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the flash of cameras. Mother had outdone herself this year, transforming the space into what she called a modern fairy tale setting. I watched from my assigned seat as she worked the crowd, her silver dress catching the light as she moved from group to group. Linda? She air kissed my cheeks when she finally reached our table. You look comfortable. Her smile tightened. I see you went with the black dress after all. You look lovely, Mother. Catherine, darling. A woman in her 60s interrupted us. The decorations are divine, and Jordan looks absolutely radiant tonight. Doesn't she? Mother beamed. She's announcing something spectacular later. Linda, have you met Richard? He's in tech too. Actual tech, not just freelancing. Richard, the venture capitalist I'd been seated beside, extended his hand. Pleasure. What kind of work do you do? Before I could answer, Mother jumped in. Oh, Linda helps small businesses with their websites. Nothing too complicated. Richard here just closed a $50 million deal in Silicon Valley. I sipped my champagne, thinking about the $100 million acquisition offer sitting in my inbox. How fascinating, I murmured. Speaking of business, Mother lowered her voice. Linda, dear, we need you to join us on stage during Jordan's announcement. Just smile and nod. You can manage that, right? Emma caught my eye from across the room and raised an eyebrow. I gave her a subtle nod. The lights dimmed and Father took the stage. Welcome, everyone, to the 35th Annual Armstrong Family Foundation Gala. Applause filled the room. Tonight is extra special as we celebrate not just our charitable work, but also an exciting new chapter for our youngest daughter, Jordan. Jordan practically floated onto the stage in her sparkling gown. Thank you, Daddy. As you all know, my luxury skincare line has been my passion project for the past year. We've had some unexpected challenges. She paused dramatically. But tonight I'm thrilled to announce our expansion plans. Mother appeared at my elbow. That's your cue, dear. Remember, smile and nod. I allowed myself to be steered toward the stage, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Tatum's text buzzed in my clutch. Everything's ready. My beautiful sister Linda, Jordan gushed into the microphone, has always been my biggest supporter, and tonight she's proving it again. She turned to me, eyes gleaming. Linda has generously agreed to invest $800,000 to expand our skincare line. The room erupted in applause. I felt the blood drain from my face as Jordan continued. Such a blessing that she has no husband or children to support, so she can help her family instead. Mother squeezed my arm, warning. Smile, she hissed. I stepped up to the microphone. The room fell silent, waiting for my prescribed response of grateful acceptance. That's quite an announcement, I said slowly, especially since this is the first I'm hearing of it. Jordan's smile faltered. Mother's fingers dug into my arm. Oh, don't be modest, Jordan tried to recover. We discussed this last week. Did we? Must have been right after you maxed out your third credit card and before you lost your last investor. I turned to the crowd. Actually, since we're all here, I have an announcement of my own. Linda, Father warned from behind me. I shrugged off Mother's grip and walked to the AV booth. Could you pull up the next slide, please? Linda, get back here right now. Mother's voice carried across the silent room. The screen behind me flickered. My bank balance appeared in bold numbers. $893.42. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jordan's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the stage. That's right, I said into the microphone. The daughter you never thought would amount to anything? She's been running a successful tech empire for the past 5 years. The little freelance work you dismissed? It's now worth 9 figures. Mother's perfect smile had completely vanished. Father was frantically whispering to the event coordinator. So no, Jordan, I won't be paying off your debt. Instead, I nodded to the AV technician again. The screen changed to show my foundation's logo. I'm announcing the creation of the Armstrong Barlow Foundation for Young Women Entrepreneurs. Emma stood up from her table, applauding. Others joined her, the sound growing. This foundation, I continued, my voice steady, will support young women who, like me, were told they weren't enough, who built something from nothing, who succeeded not because of their family's support, but despite its absence. I could see reporters scribbling frantically. Mother had collapsed into a chair while Father was making a beeline for the stage. Oh, and one more thing, I added, just as he reached the steps. I have some interesting documents about where the money from Jordan's previous failed ventures really went. Would anyone like to see those? The room erupted into chaos. I stepped away from the microphone, my heart pounding but my head held high. The perfect family facade was finally cracking, and I was just getting started. The next few minutes were a blur of flashing cameras and shouted questions. Father had grabbed the microphone, attempting damage control with his practiced banker's smile. Ladies and gentlemen, please, there seems to be a misunderstanding. Perhaps we should take a brief intermission. Is it true about the misappropriated investor funds? A reporter called out. How long has the family been covering up Jordan's failed businesses? Another voice joined in. I stood quietly at the edge of the stage, watching my carefully constructed bomb detonate. Mother had recovered enough to paste on her social smile, though her hands shook as she gripped her champagne glass. Linda? Emma appeared at my elbow. Security's getting antsy. We should move somewhere quieter. Before I could respond, Jordan stormed over, mascara running down her cheeks. How dare you? How fucking dare you humiliate me like this? Humiliate you? I kept my voice low. Like you've humiliated me for years? Poor Linda, no husband, no real job, nothing to show for herself. That was different. I was trying to help you. By announcing I'd pay your debt without even asking me? Mother said you'd understand. You always understand. Jordan's voice cracked. You're my sister. You're supposed to support me. A man in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. I recognized him immediately. Santiago, Jordan's ex-boyfriend and former investor. Support you? He laughed bitterly. Like you supported your investors? Tell them about the yacht, Jordan. Tell them where their seed money really went. Jordan's face went white. Santi, please. I have the receipts, he announced loudly, pulling out his phone. All of them. The wire transfers, the fake business reports, everything. Mother appeared between us like a ghost. This is a private family matter, she hissed. Linda, stop this nonsense immediately. Or what, Mother? You'll cut me off? Disown me? Go ahead. I gestured to the screen still showing my bank balance. I don't need your money anymore. Money isn't everything, she snapped. What about loyalty? Family? Loyalty? Emma stepped forward. Like when you cut me off for marrying the wrong person, or when you told Linda her business ideas were embarrassing? Mother's eyes narrowed. I should have known you were behind this, always filling Linda's head with ridiculous notions of independence. The only notion in my head, I said clearly, is that I'm done being your backup plan, done watching you throw money at Jordan's failures while calling my success cute little projects. Tatum appeared with her laptop. Linda, you need to see this. The story's already hitting social media. People are digging up all of Jordan's old business records. Stop, Father thundered, finally reaching our group. Linda, name your price. Whatever you want. Just stop this circus right now. I looked at him sadly. That's always been your solution, hasn't it? Throw money at problems until they go away. I'm your father. Are you? Because fathers typically support their daughters, help them grow, not tear them down to keep another child on a pedestal. The crowd had grown silent, watching our family drama unfold like a live soap opera. Reporters were recording everything on their phones. You've made your point, Mother said through clenched teeth. Now help us fix this. Fix what? The truth? I turned to the crowd. Would anyone like to hear about the time they told me I was too plain to be the face of the family charity? Or how about when they used my college fund to bail out Jordan's first failed boutique? Linda, please, Jordan whispered. You're destroying everything. No, Jordan. You all did that yourselves. I'm just finally letting people see behind the curtain. Santiago stepped forward again. And I have proof of every financial transaction, every cover-up, every emergency loan that mysteriously vanished. Mother swayed slightly. Keith, she grabbed Father's arm, do something. But there was nothing he could do. The perfect family image they'd cultivated for decades was shattering in real time, and all the money in the world couldn't put it back together. Ms. Linda? A young woman approached hesitantly. I'm from the Business Journal. Would you tell us more about your new foundation? I smiled genuinely for the first time that evening. Of course, it's a project very close to my heart. Linda! Mother's voice was sharp. Don't you dare! The foundation, I continued, ignoring her, will focus on supporting young women from unsupportive families. Because sometimes the biggest obstacle to success isn't lack of talent or determination. It's the people who should be lifting you up instead holding you down. As I walked away with the reporter, I heard Jordan burst into fresh tears and Mother calling for her anxiety medication. But for once, I didn't turn back to fix their problems. My time as the family band aid was officially over. The Business Journal reporter Sarah leaned forward eagerly. So, this foundation, it's more than just financial support, isn't it? Much more, I replied, aware of the growing crowd of journalists around us. We're creating a mentorship network, business incubator programs, and Linda! Father's voice boomed across the room. He was striding toward us with two security guards. This interview is over. I stood my ground. Actually, it's not. Sarah, would you like to see the next slide? Before father could intervene, the screen lit up with documents, bank statements, emails, and contracts spanning years. The room fell silent again. These, I gestured to the screen, show exactly how my family handled money over the past decade. Notice the pattern? Every time Jordan failed, they diverted funds from our family foundation to cover it up. That's confidential information, father spluttered. Not anymore. Santiago stepped forward, his phone still recording. As an investor who was defrauded, I made sure everything was properly documented and reported to the relevant authorities. Mother appeared, clutching her pearls. You're making a scene, Linda. Think about what this will do to our reputation. Your reputation? Emma's voice cut through the tension. You mean the reputation you built by crushing anyone who didn't fit your perfect image? By hiding Jordan's failures and Linda's successes? Jordan, who had been surprisingly quiet, suddenly lunged forward. You think you're so perfect? At least I tried to do something with my life. What did you do? Hide behind a computer screen? I laughed, actually laughed. What I did was build a company valued at over $90 million. While you were buying yachts with investor money, I was creating jobs. While you were getting bailouts, I was helping other women succeed. Lies! Jordan screamed. You're lying! Tatum stepped forward, tablet in hand. Actually, here's the latest acquisition offer from Silicon Valley. Would anyone like to see it? Reporters surged forward. Father tried to block them, but it was too late. And here, I continued, nodding to the AV tech, is where the foundation money really went. Notice these transfers? Each one coincides with one of Jordan's business emergencies. Mother swayed dangerously. Keith, stop her. You can't stop the truth, Mother. I turned to the crowd. The Armstrong Barlow Foundation will be different, complete transparency, regular audits, real support for women who need it. I'm calling our lawyers, Father threatened. Go ahead. I have copies of everything. Santiago has copies. The SEC has copies. The mention of the SEC made Father's face go pale. Jordan started sobbing again. You've ruined everything, she wailed. All my investors will pull out now. Your investors already pulled out, Santiago corrected. That's why your parents were trying to force Linda to bail you out. Again. A young woman in the crowd raised her hand. Ms. Linda, how can we apply for foundation support? Don't you dare answer that, Mother hissed. I smiled directly at the young woman. Applications open next month. We're especially interested in tech startups and social enterprise initiatives, the kind of businesses my family called unrealistic dreams. This is your last chance, Father warned. Retract everything now or you're out of the family. The room held its breath. I could feel Emma's supportive presence behind me, Tatum's quiet strength beside me. Out of the family? I met his gaze steadily. I've been out of this family since I refused to play by your rules. The only difference is now everyone knows why. Security! Mother called. Remove her! Actually, the head of security stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. We work for the hotel, ma'am, and Ms. Linda has proper credentials for this event. Jordan made one last attempt. What about all the times I helped you? Covered for you? Covered for me? I shook my head. You mean like telling everyone I was between jobs when my company hit its first million, or suggesting I needed therapy because I wouldn't fund your spa venture? Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the room. The Armstrong Barlow Foundation's first initiative will be converting my family's old summer house into a business incubator. Seems fitting, turning a symbol of privilege into a launching pad for real talent. Mother actually gasped. You can't! That property is mine now, I finished. I bought it last week. Amazing what you can do with actual earned money instead of family handouts. The reporters were scribbling frantically. Father had his phone out, presumably calling his lawyer. Jordan had collapsed into a chair, mascara completely ruined. But for the first time in my life, standing in that room full of witnesses to our family's implosion, I felt completely free. Now, I turned back to Sarah. Where were we? Ah, yes. Let me tell you about our mentorship program. After the media frenzy, Emma guided me to the gala's green room. My hands were shaking as I collapsed onto a plush velvet sofa. Here. She handed me a glass of water. You did it. You actually did it. I can't believe. My voice cracked. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me raw. The door burst open. Tatum rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. The stories everywhere. Twitter's exploding. 3 major business magazines want exclusive interviews. How bad is it out there? I asked. Your mother's having a medical episode in the lobby. Your father's threatening to sue everyone in sight. And Jordan. Tatum checked her phone. Jordan's trying to spin it on Instagram as a family misunderstanding. Emma snorted. A misunderstanding? They tried to extort $800,000 from you in public. A soft knock interrupted us. Sarah, the Business Journal reporter, poked her head in. Ms. Linda, do you have a moment? Actually, Emma started protectively. It's okay, I said. Come in, Sarah. She sat across from me, recorder ready. That was incredible out there. But what made you finally do it? Why tonight? Before I could answer, the door slammed open again. Jordan stormed in, her perfect makeup now a disaster. Turn off that recorder, she demanded. This is family business. Family business? I laughed tiredly. Like when you announced to hundreds of people that I'd pay your debt without asking me? You're my sister. You're supposed to help me. Like you helped me? I turned to Sarah. Want to know why tonight? Because 6 years ago, when I asked my family for a $10,000 loan to start my company, they told me I was being irresponsible. 2 weeks later, they gave Jordan $50,000 for a juice bar that lasted 3 months. That was different, Jordan protested. My ideas were solid. Your ideas were vanity projects, Emma cut in. Linda actually had a business plan. Nobody asked you, traitor. Jordan spun toward Emma. You're just bitter because your husband isn't good enough for our family. My husband built his own successful business, Emma replied calmly, without Daddy's money. Sarah was scribbling frantically. Jordan noticed and lunged for her notebook. Give me that! Touch her, and I'll add a salt to the story, Tatum warned, stepping between them. The door opened again. Mother stood there, looking oddly deflated without her usual perfect posture. Linda, we need to talk. Alone. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of them. Fine. Mother stepped in, closing the door. Name your price. Excuse me? To fix this, whatever you want. Money, property, positions on the foundation board. Just tell us how to make this go away. I stared at her in disbelief. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. Then what? Attention? You've certainly gotten plenty tonight. It's about truth, Mother. About finally showing everyone who you really are. Who we really are? Her voice rose. We're your family. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing but criticism and comparison. I stood up, anger flooding back. Every achievement was dismissed. Every success was minimized, while Jordan got endless chances, endless support, endless praise. Because Jordan needed it. You were always so capable. Capable? I laughed bitterly. I was invisible until you needed something from me. Sarah cleared her throat. Mrs. Catherine, would you like to comment on the allegations about misappropriated foundation funds? Mother's face hardened. Get out, all of you except Linda. Nobody moved. These are my witnesses, I said quietly. They stay. Witnesses? Jordan scoffed. For what? For when you try to spin this tomorrow, when you try to paint me as the ungrateful daughter who betrayed her family. You did betray us, Jordan shrieked. Look what you've done to our reputation. Your reputation was a lie, Emma said. Linda just exposed it. Mother sank into a chair, suddenly looking every bit of her 61 years. What do you want, Linda? Really? I want you to live with the truth, like I've had to live with your lies all these years. And the foundation? Her voice was barely a whisper. Will help girls who remind me of myself. The ones told they're not enough, not pretty enough, not social enough. The ones whose families try to dim their light instead of helping it shine. Jordan made a disgusted sound. So sanctimonious. You think you're better than us? No, I replied. I think I'm finally free of you. Mother stood abruptly. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I nodded to Sarah. Would you like those documents now? As Mother dragged Jordan out, I could hear Father in the hallway, still shouting about lawyers. But his threats couldn't touch me anymore. The truth was finally out, and it was more liberating than any revenge could ever be. The morning after the gala, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I sat in my home office, watching the fallout unfold across every major news outlet. Turn on Channel 7, Tatum texted. Your mother's doing damage control. I flipped on the TV to see Mother, perfectly coiffed despite everything, sitting across from a morning show host. It's simply a misunderstanding, she was saying, her practiced smile firmly in place. Every family has their disagreements. Mrs. Catherine, the host interrupted, we have documents showing systematic misuse of charitable funds. Would you care to comment on that? Before Mother could respond, my phone rang. Father. Linda? He barked without greeting. Fix this now. I'll double whatever that foundation of yours is worth. It's not for sale, Father. Triple it, plus the summer house stays in the family. The summer house is already mine. The paperwork was finalized last week. He went quiet for a moment. You've always been stubborn, just like your mother. Funny, she always said I was cold and calculating, like you. The doorbell rang. Through my security camera, I saw Jordan standing there, looking surprisingly subdued in jeans and a sweater. I have to go, I told Father. My lawyer will be in touch about the foundation audit. I opened the door cautiously. Jordan's eyes were red and puffy. They're freezing my accounts, she said without preamble. All of them. Santiago's lawyers contacted the bank. That's not my problem. Please, Linda, I have nowhere else to go. Mother and Father are. She trailed off. Are what? They're being investigated. The foundation board called an emergency meeting. Everyone's resigning. I let her stand there for a moment, remembering all the times she'd watched me struggle without offering help. There's a Marriott downtown, I said finally. They take credit cards. My cards are frozen. Weren't you listening? Tears welled up. I'm your sister. You should have thought about that before trying to force me to pay your debts. I didn't know, she grabbed my arm. Mother said you'd agreed. She said you wanted to help. My phone buzzed again. Emma, don't trust her. Mother sent her. As if on cue, a black SUV pulled up. Mother stepped out, followed by two men in suits. Linda, she called out, these gentlemen would like to discuss a settlement. No discussions without my lawyer present. Don't be difficult, Mother snapped. We're trying to help you save face. I laughed. Save face? The truth is already out there. Santiago's evidence is with the SEC. The foundation's books are being audited. You can't buy your way out of this one. Think about Jordan's future. Like you thought about mine? One of the suits stepped forward. Ms. Linda, we're prepared to offer substantial compensation for your silence. My silence? I pulled out my phone and started recording. Please, tell me more about how you'd like to buy my silence regarding federal financial crimes. They backed away quickly. You've ruined everything, Jordan burst out. All my investors are pulling out of the new skincare line. Good, I said. Maybe you'll finally have to earn something on your own. Mother's perfect mask cracked. You ungrateful. Mrs. Catherine? A voice called from the street. We turned to see Sarah from the Business Journal holding up her press badge. Care to comment on the foundation board's mass resignation? Mother practically ran back to the SUV. The suits followed quickly. Linda, please, Jordan tried one last time. I'll do anything. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the designer clothes and perfect highlights, she seemed small, lost. There's a program, I said finally, for young entrepreneurs. Real ones, not vanity projects. It starts next month at the incubator. If you're serious about learning actual business skills, you can apply. Apply? Like, compete for it? Yes, Jordan, like everyone else. She stared at me for a long moment before turning away. I watched her climb into the SUV, which peeled away from the curb. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Armstrong Family Foundation under federal investigation. Exclusive details inside. Then another text from Tatum. Netflix wants to do a documentary. Should I set up a meeting? I smiled, thinking about all the young women who would see it, who would recognize their own stories in mine. Set it up, I replied. Looking out at the morning sun, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth hadn't just set me free, it had cleared the way for something better, something real. My phone buzzed one more time. Emma, ready to start interviewing for the incubator program? Ready, I typed back. Let's build something better than they ever imagined. 3 weeks after the gala, I stood at the podium in the newly renovated business incubator, formerly my family's summer house. The space was packed with young women, entrepreneurs, reporters, and supporters. Welcome to the first Armstrong Barlow Foundation launch event, I began, though I suspect we'll be dropping the Armstrong part soon. Scattered laughter rippled through the crowd. Everyone had seen the news about my family's spectacular fall from grace. This space represents more than just a business incubator, I continued. It represents every woman who was told to dream smaller, to be quieter, to settle for less. Emma, standing near the front, gave me an encouraging nod. We've received over 500 applications for our first cohort. Today we're announcing the 50 women selected. The back doors burst open. Jordan walked in, wearing a simple black dress instead of her usual designer gear. "Sorry I'm late," she said quietly, slipping into an empty seat. I paused, then continued. These 50 women were chosen not for their family connections or social status, but for their drive, their innovation, and their determination. Tatum appeared at my side with the presentation remote. The screen behind me lit up with faces and project descriptions. From sustainable fashion to medical technology, from educational software to urban farming, these entrepreneurs represent the future, a future built on merit, not manipulation. The crowd applauded. I spotted Santiago in the back, nodding approvingly. And now I gestured to the row of successful businesswomen seated on stage. Our mentors would like to say a few words. As the first mentor took the podium, a commotion near the entrance caught my attention. Mother was trying to get past security. "This is my family's property," she hissed. "You can't keep me out." "Actually," Emma approached her, "it's foundation property now, and you're not on the guest list." "I'm her mother." "Being family doesn't guarantee access anymore," I said into the microphone. "That's rather the point of all this." The crowd turned to watch. Mother's face flushed red. "You think you're so clever?" she spat. "But what happens when the novelty wears off? When these girls realize you're just using them for revenge?" A young woman stood up from the audience. "Ms. Linda isn't using us. She's the first person who actually believed in my business plan." Another rose. "She reviewed my proposal herself, gave me real feedback." "Helped me secure ethical investors," added a third. Mother's perfect mask cracked completely. "You ungrateful little—" "Security," Emma called calmly. "Please escort Mrs. Catherine out." As Mother was led away, Jordan remained in her seat, staring at her hands. I returned to the podium. Success isn't inherited. It's earned. Every woman in this room knows that. And together, we're going to prove it. The mentorship announcements continued. Near the end, a small girl, probably someone's daughter, tugged at my sleeve. "Are you a hero?" she whispered. I knelt down to her level. "No, sweetheart, I'm just someone who stopped being afraid of the truth." After the ceremony, Jordan approached me. She looked different, humbled maybe. "I submitted an application," she said, "under a different name. It was rejected. The selection committee is independent. I don't influence their decisions." "I know. That's why—" She took a deep breath. "That's why I'd like to apply for the next cohort, with a real business plan this time." I studied her face. "It won't be easy. No shortcuts. No family bailouts." "I understand. I've been I've been taking some online business courses, basic accounting, marketing." Before I could respond, Sarah from the Business Journal approached with her recorder. "Ms. Linda, could you comment on the SEC's findings regarding your family's foundation?" "Actually," I smiled, "I'd rather talk about our new entrepreneurs. Have you met Jessica? She's developing sustainable building materials from recycled ocean plastic." As I introduced the reporters to our first cohort of founders, I caught Emma's eye across the room. She raised her water glass in a subtle toast. My phone buzzed, a text from Tatum. "Netflix documentary crew arrives next week. Also, you're trending on Twitter again." I slipped the phone back into my pocket. The headlines could wait. Right now, watching these women network and share their dreams, I was exactly where I needed to be. "Ms. Linda?" Another young entrepreneur approached. "Could you look at my revised business plan?" "Of course," I said, leading her to a quiet corner. "Tell me everything." This was my real revenge, not destroying my family's reputation, but building something better from its ashes. Something true, something earned. And watching Jordan take notes in the back row, I realized some revelations come later than others, but they come all the same. The autumn breeze rustled through the trees as I stood outside my childhood home. Construction crews were finishing the conversion into the foundation's second location, our new mentorship center. Coffee? Emma appeared beside me, holding two steaming cups. Thanks. I took a sip, watching the workers remove the last of the pretentious Armstrong Estate signage. The Netflix documentary is trending at number 1, she said, checking her phone. The comments are interesting. Let me guess. Mother's given another interview claiming I'm mentally unstable? Actually, no. She and your father have gone surprisingly quiet since the SEC expanded their investigation. A familiar Tesla pulled into the driveway. Jordan stepped out, carrying a laptop and looking almost unrecognizable in business casual attire. I finished the market research report, she said, approaching us, and I think I found a gap in the sustainable cosmetics market that nobody's addressing. I raised an eyebrow. Show me. She opened her laptop, pulling up detailed spreadsheets and competitor analyses. See, everyone's focused on luxury organic products, but nobody's targeting middle income consumers who want sustainable options. And your solution? Direct to consumer model, transparent supply chain, reasonable pricing. She clicked through her presentation. I've already contacted 3 ethical manufacturers. Emma whistled softly. This is actually solid work. I know you probably don't believe I've changed, Jordan said quietly. But those business courses, they opened my eyes. I never really understood what it meant to build something real. A black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. Mother emerged, looking frantic. Girls, thank God you're both here. The board, they're selling everything. The main house, the cars, even my jewelry. Asset forfeiture, I explained calmly. That's what happens when you misappropriate charitable funds. But where will we live? What will people say? Maybe, Jordan suggested, we should worry less about what people say and more about what we actually do. Mother stared at her as if she'd grown a second head. Not you, too. They've brainwashed you. No, Mother. They've taught me. There's a difference. Ladies? Tatum called from the front door. The documentary crew is here for final interviews, and Sarah from the Business Journal wants quotes about the Mentorship Center launch. Mother straightened her designer jacket. I'll handle the press. You're not authorized to speak for the foundation, Emma cut in. In fact, you should leave before security arrives. I'm still your mother. Yes, I said softly, but that doesn't give you the right to control our lives anymore. As if to punctuate my words, workers began installing the new sign, Next Generation, a Women's Business Center. You've destroyed everything we built, Mother cried. No, Jordan surprised me by speaking up. We're building something better, something real. You can either accept that or leave. Mother's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw past her perfect makeup to the scared woman beneath, someone who'd spent her whole life maintaining appearances at the cost of authenticity. The center has a financial literacy program, I found myself saying, open to anyone who wants to learn. She stared at me for a long moment before turning away, climbing back into her SUV without another word. That was kind of you, Emma observed after Mother drove away. Maybe, or maybe I just want her to see what real success looks like. Jordan closed her laptop. I should get back to work on these projections. The selection committee meets next week. You're really doing this? I asked. Competing for a spot like everyone else? Yes. She met my eyes. I want to earn something for once. Inside, I could hear the documentary crew setting up. Tatum was directing them to capture the transformation of the space, from a symbol of inherited privilege to a launchpad for earned success. Ready for the final interview? Emma asked. I looked at the building that had once represented everything wrong with my family, the facade, the expectations, the conditional love. Now it would help other women break free from similar constraints. Almost, I said. Just need to do one thing first. I walked to the old oak tree where Father used to measure our heights, marking them in pencil. The marks were still there, Jordan's always slightly higher, even when they weren't. Taking out my keys, I carved something new into the bark. Success grows from truth. Linda? Tatum called. They're ready for you. I turned away from the tree, ready to tell my story one last time. Not for revenge now, but for all the women who needed to hear it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you, it's building something better in its place.
Hi, I'm Gloria, a 36-year-old office worker balancing the ups and downs of daily life. My husband Matthew and I recently celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary, and almost immediately after we tied the knot, we became parents. Our daughter, the brightest part of our lives, is about to turn 8. Over the years, there have been some challenging moments in our marriage, but the joy our daughter brings to our lives is irreplaceable, and on the whole, I find happiness in our family dynamic. That said, like any family, we have our struggles, and for me, one area of tension lies in the way we handle finances. Matthew has a strong passion for his hobbies, and while he doesn't go overboard, he often spends a sizable portion of his income on them. I've always stressed the importance of him contributing a fixed minimum to our household expenses, funds that cover the essentials like utilities and groceries. But since his contributions only cover the basics, I find myself constantly working to tighten our budget elsewhere. My salary goes towards rent, our daughter's school fees, and saving for her future education, and this constant juggling of finances adds a lot of stress to my life. Another source of strain comes from the uneven division of household labor. Despite both of us working full-time, Matthew rarely helps with the chores. I've brought it up countless times, hoping for a more balanced approach to maintaining the house. Juggling work, finances, and home upkeep is exhausting, and I often wish the responsibilities were shared more fairly. Despite this, I stay positive, focusing on creating a warm, nurturing environment for our daughter. As she grows, I hope we can show her the importance of teamwork and responsibility, making adjustments as we go to better support each other. It's not a perfect situation, but I'm committed to making the best of it. When I ask Matthew to help around the house, his go-to excuse is that the tasks would take him too long, and it's easier for me to handle them myself. Over time, I've taken on all the household responsibilities alone. We had our daughter soon after getting married, but Matthew was often absent when it came to her upbringing. He expressed concerns about accidentally hurting her, which meant I carried most of the parenting load. As the years went by, my dissatisfaction with him grew, but we had been together for 8 years and had a growing child. I wasn't sure if initiating a divorce when our daughter was approaching puberty was the right decision. I told myself that maybe it was normal for couples to feel disconnected after many years together and that no family was without its flaws. But a recent incident with my sister-in-law made me seriously reconsider our marriage. One day, she showed up at our door looking visibly distressed. "Gloria, I'm sorry, but I need to stay here for a bit. There's been an issue with Ryan," she said, clearly upset. I was worried and asked if something had happened with her husband. She hesitated and tried to change the subject, which left me feeling uneasy and desperate for more information. Later that night, when Matthew returned from work and we had put our daughter to bed, we all sat down to talk. "So, what happened?" I asked, looking at my sister-in-law. I asked her what had happened, and she hesitated before replying. "Well, Ryan just snapped. He said, out of nowhere, that he wants a divorce." I was stunned. I had always thought of Ryan as a calm, stable, and sincere person, so this sudden outburst didn't make sense. I pressed her for more details, asking, "Why did he get so angry?" She seemed defensive, her voice rising with panic. "Why are you asking me that?" she retorted. A thought crossed my mind. Perhaps she had done something to provoke him. Her avoidance only fueled my concern. "What do you mean? Why am I asking?" I responded. "Why are you defending him? Are you involved with him or something?" Her accusation caught me off guard, but I quickly denied it. "Of course not," I said. "I'm not involved with Ryan." Matthew, overhearing the exchange, laughed off her suggestion. "That's impossible," he said. "She barely has time for anything outside of her responsibilities. And besides, she always leaves her phone out in the open." Despite my husband's defense, frustration bubbled inside me. My life was a constant whirlwind of work, household chores, and caring for our daughter. After long days, I barely had the energy to check my phone, let alone engage in anything like an affair. Still, my sister-in-law insisted she didn't know why Ryan was upset. We agreed it would be best to talk directly to him to clear things up. A little later, Ryan arrived at our house. My sister-in-law, still uneasy, decided to step out and give us some space. Ryan, looking apologetic, expressed regret over the turmoil he'd caused. "I'm really sorry for all the trouble," he said earnestly, his calm demeanor confirming my belief that he wasn't the type to make rash decisions. "Ryan, I just don't understand," I said, pressing him. "You've only been married for a year. Isn't asking for a divorce a bit extreme? There has to be a reason. Ryan took a deep breath before revealing the shocking truth. The reason is that she spent all of my savings, $110,000, without telling me. I felt the air leave the room. You saved $110,000 and it's all gone in just 1 year, I said, my voice betraying my disbelief. That's about $5,500 every month. How did that happen? Ryan explained that he had been carefully managing their finances, allocating just enough from his monthly income to cover all their living expenses. The entire $110,000 had been spent entirely on non-essential personal expenses, luxuries, and entertainment. No wonder you're upset, I said, empathizing with him. Anyone would be furious in your shoes. I couldn't help but think of my own situation with Matthew's tendency to overspend. It was almost as if this was a family trait. With the revelation of the massive financial strain, I suggested, if she doesn't make an effort to repay that $110,000, maybe you should seriously think about separating, especially since there are no kids involved. Ryan nodded, taking my advice to heart, but then Matthew surprised me by chiming in. I'll make sure my sister pays you back, he said confidently. I was taken aback by his sudden certainty. How could he be so sure? Ryan looked at him, clearly appreciative of the support. I would appreciate that, thank you. With that, we had reached what seemed like a tentative resolution, though I knew the situation was far from over. As Ryan left, my sister-in-law returned to the house, the weight of everything still hanging in the air. I confronted her immediately. Ryan mentioned that he used up all of his savings, $110,000. She quickly became defensive. I used it for living expenses, she retorted, her tone sharp. I tried to explain the situation, but she wouldn't hear it. Ryan had already made it clear that he kept a separate account for everyday expenses. Her reply was dismissive, almost scornful. You don't know anything, so just shut up. Her harsh tone wasn't a surprise. She often belittled me during our conversations. But this time, her complete lack of remorse, coupled with her dismissive attitude toward the mess she created, made it all too clear. Ryan might truly be better off pursuing a divorce. She refused to acknowledge the seriousness of what she'd done, and there was no indication that she planned to fix anything. It painted a grim picture for the future of their marriage. During our heated exchange, Ryan mentioned that he might consider forgiving her if she repaid the full $110,000. My sister-in-law, seemingly cornered by her own actions, lamented, "How can I pay back that much? I'm just a housewife." I responded firmly, "If you can't pay it back, you shouldn't have spent his money in the first place." The tension in the room thickened, and then, almost as if she had an epiphany, my sister-in-law turned to me with a gleam of hope in her eye. "Relax, Gloria. We've got money, right? You've got $220,000 saved up. So no worries, right?" she said, sounding almost victorious, as if she found a miraculous solution. I was thrown off completely. "Wait a minute. How do you even know about my savings, Matthew?" I asked, stunned. I had never shared that I'd saved that amount for our daughter's future tuition. Matthew, appearing unfazed, casually admitted, "I found it when I went through your parents' house. It was in the second drawer of the closet in your room." I was speechless. "You went through my things without asking. That's unbelievable. We're married, but that doesn't mean my personal belongings are up for inspection," I protested, feeling utterly betrayed. Ignoring my outrage, Matthew continued, "Your sister-in-law is in trouble. Give us your savings to help her out." I was incredulous. "I'm not handing over that money. It's for our daughter's future. If you think $110,000 should just be given away, why don't you figure out a way to pay her back?" Matthew didn't hesitate. He reached into a drawer and pulled out divorce papers. "I've had these ready just in case something like this happened," he said coldly, as if he'd been preparing for this moment all along. My frustration boiled over. "You've got some nerve trying to manipulate the situation like this," I snapped. "That's exactly what I've been wanting to say to you," I added, my voice shaking with the weight of my anger. Then, with chilling finality, Matthew filled out the papers and said, "I'm serious. We can get a divorce anytime you want." To my shock, my sister-in-law, watching the drama unfold with an almost gleeful grin, piped up. "Well, I'll be one of your witnesses," she said, scribbling her name on the form as if she were signing a trivial document. "You can either pay me the $110,000 or we can get a divorce," Matthew threatened, as though he were cornering me into a choice. I was astounded by their boldness and manipulative tactics. But rather than giving them the satisfaction of seeing how deeply their words cut, I feigned compliance, allowing the moment to pass without escalating things further. The next day, I prepared myself for whatever came next. I decided to take control of the situation and invited some important figures, my in-laws and Ryan, to our home. When they arrived, Matthew was immediately baffled. "Ryan, why are you here?" "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" he asked, his confusion palpable. Before Matthew could say anything more, his father interjected, his voice calm but firm. "Matthew, don't embarrass yourself any further." He then turned to me and added, "Gloria, I'm truly sorry about my son and daughter's foolish behavior." Ryan also spoke up, his tone sincere. "I must apologize to Gloria," he said. Their apologies were like a bombshell, but the tension didn't subside. Matthew, still bristling, tried to assert himself. "Why are you two apologizing? You should be quiet." Ignoring him, his father continued. "We went through your room, Matthew, and we found stacks of expensive bags and jewelry." His mother added, "Ryan asked us to look into it, and it's clear you've had a habit of hiding expensive purchases from us since you were young." The revelations hit like a ton of bricks, and Matthew's deceit became undeniable. His mother, facing the mounting evidence, finally said, "I can't stay married to you anymore." The tide had turned dramatically. The extent of Matthew's financial misconduct had been exposed, and my earlier concerns now seemed justified in an entirely new light. The situation took another turn when it came out that my sister-in-law had falsely claimed she used the $110,000 for living expenses. "I want you to pay me back the $110,000, Ryan demanded firmly, to everyone's shock, especially Matthew's. "I've already taken steps," Ryan continued. "Matthew, you're getting a divorce too. Gloria already filled out the divorce papers, and I signed as a witness. We just submitted them together." My sister-in-law's declaration was defiant. Matthew was furious. "I won't allow that," he exclaimed. I couldn't hold back my frustration. "You won't allow it? What are you talking about? You're the one who's been threatening divorce and trying to make Gloria, who has nothing to do with your sister's debts, take responsibility for everything. You are despicable. Gloria is my wife, not your property." I shot back. "She wasn't born into your family. She's essentially a stranger to you. You should show her more respect and care." Ryan chimed in, his voice steady. "I'm with Gloria on this. You're completely out of line." Faced with such a direct and reasonable argument from my parents-in-law, Matthew was left speechless, his head lowered in shame. My sister-in-law, visibly shaken, stood by silently, overwhelmed by the turn of events. Thankfully, my parents-in-law helped steer the conversation, assisting both Ryan and me in navigating through the divorce without further complications. In an attempt to make amends, my sister-in-law sold off as many luxury goods as she could, raising about $45,000 to repay Ryan. The remaining $30,000 was covered by my parents-in-law, who would now closely supervise her repayment of the debt. This arrangement brought some balance and ensured she would be held accountable for her actions, while allowing Ryan and me to move forward and start fresh. After the divorce, my sister-in-law found herself in a difficult financial position. She now works tirelessly from dawn till dusk, struggling to pay off the debt she incurred from mismanaging her former husband's savings. Her days are long and exhausting, leaving little room for rest. As for my ex-husband, the divorce forced him to make some significant changes. I arranged for him to provide child support, which he has been able to pay consistently despite his circumstances. However, I've heard through the grapevine that he continues to live alone in a modest apartment. His salary, though decent, is stretched thin by his rent, living expenses, and child support payments. Eventually, the financial strain forced him to move to a cheaper apartment. Sadly, his long-standing habit of unnecessary spending hasn't helped, and despite living in a more affordable place, he often finds himself broke, with no savings to fall back on. This financial instability will likely make it difficult for him to enter another relationship anytime soon. Meanwhile, I've returned to my parents' home with my daughter. Being back under their roof has helped stabilize our lives, allowing me to focus on the future. My parents have been incredibly supportive, especially in helping with childcare while I work. This support has been crucial in allowing me to regain my footing after the divorce. I'm working hard, not just to meet our day-to-day needs, but also to save for my daughter's future. I want her to have every opportunity to pursue her dreams without financial constraints. This is a new chapter for us, and I'm determined to make it a successful one. I plan to continue sharing our journey, hoping that our story might inspire or help others facing similar situations. If you find our story engaging and want to follow our journey through this new phase of our lives, please subscribe to the channel. Your support means so much to me, and I look forward to connecting with you in future videos. Thank you for watching. My name is Layla, and I was born in a quiet suburban town to my wonderful parents, Logan and Madison. My father worked for a local news channel, while my mother cleaned at the hospital. Though we weren't wealthy, our home was filled with love and contentment. Life moved along smoothly until I turned 14, when everything shifted in an instant. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when my parents were out at a dinner party, leaving me at home with my grandmother. I was lost in a cartoon when the phone rang, its shrill tone piercing the air. I'll never forget the cold shiver that ran through me as I heard my grandmother sobbing quietly in the kitchen. In the days that followed, confusion and sorrow blurred everything. My mother had died instantly in a car accident, and although my father survived, he was gravely injured, his legs permanently impaired. As he lay frail and broken in the hospital, my father whispered apologies, his voice thick with emotion. As a child, I couldn't understand his guilt. It wasn't his fault. An irresponsible drunk driver was to blame. But as I grew older, I came to realize that his apologies were not for the accident itself, but for the hardships we would now face and the profound changes in our lives. Still, my father's spirit was unbreakable. Once home and adjusting to life in a wheelchair, he threw himself into his work as a search marketing specialist for the city's major newspaper. His writing abilities remained as sharp as ever, unaffected by his physical limitations. As a teenager, I found strength in our close bond. We shared a love for classic films and lively debates over literature. He supported me through my academic challenges, and when it was time to head to college, he encouraged me to embrace new experiences at State University, where I chose to study forensic accounting. It was there I met Lucy, who quickly became my best friend. Through her, I met her second cousin, Aiden. He was compassionate and quick-witted with a sharp mind that matched my own. He accepted my family's situation without hesitation, and when he met my father, they bonded instantly over their mutual love of classic rock. Aiden's respect for how I managed my life and responsibilities filled me with quiet pride. College passed in a blur, and after graduation, life began to settle into place. I landed a job as a tax manager while Aiden became a commercial driver. Our relationship flourished, and 4 years later, Aiden proposed in the same park where we had shared our first date. Beneath the canopy of autumn leaves, I said yes with one important condition: that I could not leave my father, who still needed my care. Aiden, with a reassuring smile, accepted without hesitation, sealing our future with love and understanding. In sharing this story, it's clear that life's unpredictability can tear apart everything we know, but it can also stitch things back together in surprising, beautiful ways. Our current arrangement may have been unconventional, but I wouldn't change it for anything. We all live together quite comfortably now. My father's apartment is spacious enough for the 5 of us. Our wedding was intimate and beautiful. Despite being in a wheelchair, Dad insisted on rolling down the aisle to give me away. There wasn't a dry eye in the room as I held Aiden's hand, feeling like I was living in a fairy tale. But every fairy tale has its challenges, and mine came in the form of my mother-in-law, Natalie, and my sister-in-law, Ruby. From the start, it was clear they disapproved of me. During our first meeting, Natalie had asked, her face twisting in distaste, "So, your father is handicapped?" I corrected her calmly. "He's disabled, but he works as a search marketing specialist." "Oh," she said dismissively, clearly uninterested. "How nice." Her indifference stunned, but it wasn't as hurtful as when she later turned to Aiden and asked, "Are you sure about this? There are plenty of nice girls from reputable families." I felt a rush of indignation, but Aiden immediately stepped in. "Mom, Layla comes from a fine family too. Her dad's disability doesn't change that. I love her, and that's all that matters." His words quieted Natalie for the moment, but I could see her disapproval still lingering in her eyes. Ruby, following her mother's lead, was just as distant. After the wedding, Aiden moved in with Dad and me. We settled into a comfortable routine. I worked at the tax office, and Aiden spent days on the road. When he was home, we enjoyed meals together, but whenever Natalie and Ruby visited, the atmosphere in our home shifted. They paraded around as if they owned the place, barely acknowledging my father. Once I overheard Natalie whisper to Ruby, "It's such a pity Aiden ended up with her and her crippled father. What if they have kids? Can you imagine the genes?" I was livid, but I stayed silent for Aiden's sake. I tried to keep the peace, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. One evening, after another tense visit from Natalie and Ruby, I couldn't hold back my tears. Aiden found me crying in our bedroom. "Hey, hey," he comforted me, pulling me close. "What's wrong?" I managed to say through my sobs, "Your mom and sister. They despise me. They think I'm not good enough for you because of Dad." Aiden's expression hardened. "That's absurd. You and Dad are my family now. If they can't accept that, it's their problem, not ours." His words reassured me, but the tension with Natalie and Ruby remained. Over time, Aiden's trucking business thrived, and he was frequently on the road. I missed him during his absences, but I kept busy with work and spent my evenings with Dad. Then, one crisp autumn night, as I helped Dad into bed, Aiden called, his voice full of excitement. "Lee, I've been thinking," he began. "How would you feel about us buying a townhouse? It would be more accessible for Dad in his wheelchair. He could spend more time outdoors, and you could even have a garden to tend to." The more Aiden spoke about the idea, the more intrigued I became. I glanced at my dad, who was trying not to show he'd been eavesdropping on the conversation. "What do you think, Dad?" I asked, switching the phone to speaker mode. His eyes sparkled with excitement. "A garden sounds wonderful," he confessed, a smile breaking across his face. "And it would make getting outside so much easier." That was the deciding moment. Over the next several weeks, Aiden and I dedicated ourselves to finding a new home. Eventually, we discovered the ideal place. A spacious townhouse with wide doorways, a wheelchair-accessible shower for Dad, and a lovely backyard. Although taking out a mortgage was daunting, our combined incomes and the rent from Dad's previous apartment made it possible. We moved in on a sunny Saturday in spring, and I'll always remember the joy on Dad's face as he wheeled out onto our new patio. "This is perfect, sweetie," he beamed, his eyes gleaming with gratitude. In the months that followed, we settled in comfortably. I started a small vegetable garden, and Dad spent hours outside, enjoying the sunshine and fresh air. Life felt blissful. Then came our housewarming party. We invited friends, colleagues, and yes, Natalie and Ruby. They arrived late as usual and immediately surveyed everything with barely hidden envy. During the house tour, Natalie's calculating glances became obvious. When we reached the master bedroom, she leaned in with a sly grin. "You know, Layla," she whispered, "this room would be perfect for Aiden and me. Why don't you send your father to a nursing home? Then I could move in here." I was stunned. "Excuse me," I managed to say, but she continued, undeterred. "Your father isn't well. He doesn't need all this luxury. A nursing home would be enough for him." Before I could respond, she strolled out to the patio, where Dad was chatting with guests. To my horror, she grabbed his wheelchair and began pushing him toward the driveway. "Natalie," I shouted, running after her. "What are you doing? If you want him outside, he can stay right here." I was furious and shaken. Thankfully, Aiden heard the commotion and came running, his face flushed with anger. "Mom," he shouted, his tone sharp, "what are you doing? Let go of Logan's chair now." Natalie looked taken aback by his sternness. "But honey, I was just—" "I don't want to hear it." Aiden cut her off. "You and Ruby need to leave now." After they left, Aiden apologized deeply to both Dad and me. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea she'd go this far." Dad reached out, patting Aiden's hand gently. "It's not your fault, son. Some people just don't understand what's important." Life gradually found a new rhythm after the housewarming debacle. Natalie and Ruby kept their distance, which was fine by me. Aiden threw himself into his work, taking on longer hauls to help us manage our new mortgage commitments. It was a challenging time, but it ultimately brought us closer as a family, fortified by resilience and understanding. Balancing my role at the tax office with caring for our home and Dad, the years passed seamlessly. Though Aiden was frequently away, his presence at home always brought us joy. My father's health remained stable, and he enjoyed his days gardening or editing from his workspace at home. Then, one fateful day at work, my phone rang. A chill ran through me as the caller introduced himself as Officer Rodriguez from the Highway Patrol. His words washed over me like cold water as he delivered the heart-wrenching news of Aiden's severe accident. The details of the head-on collision blurred together, the gravity of his words not fully hitting until after the call ended. When reality finally set in, I was left with an emptiness I'd never known. Aiden was no longer with us. The following week passed in a haze of grief and arrangements, carried out in a numb state as I struggled to process the weight of the loss. I knew it was crucial to personally inform Natalie, Aiden's mother, about the tragedy. When I called, her initial sharp tone quickly twisted into harsh accusations, blaming me for Aiden's accident. She claimed his demanding work schedule was my fault, her words leaving me stunned and devastated. She ended the call abruptly, leaving me in tears. Aiden's funeral took place on a gray, drizzly day that mirrored the somber mood. Though his mother and sister were notably absent, the community's heartfelt turnout showed how respected and loved he was. My father stood beside me, offering quiet strength as we braved the sadness together. When we returned home, something felt off. The lights were on, and I could hear movement inside. A bizarre sight, especially since I had double-checked that everything was off before leaving. Fearing a break-in on this already heavy day, I cautiously approached with my father. But as we stepped inside, the voices sounded strangely familiar, revealing a shocking twist. In the living room, I found Natalie and Ruby, surrounded by boxes and scattered furniture. "What on earth is going on?" I asked, confusion briefly breaking through my sorrow. Natalie looked up, her expression a mockery of sympathy. "Oh, Leila, dear," she said smoothly, "we're just helping you pack. After all, you can't afford to stay here now that Aiden's gone." I was too stunned to respond at first. Ruby chimed in with a saccharine smile. "Don't worry, you can move back into your dad's apartment. It's nice and cozy." A surge of anger rose within me. "Get out," I said quietly but firmly, holding back the flood of emotions. "Get out of my house, now." Natalie looked genuinely surprised. "This house is ours now, along with all of Aiden's things. We're his family, after all." I held her gaze, defiant. "Funny, you didn't seem like family today at his funeral." "Oh, that's right, you weren't there." Natalie waved my words away dismissively. "We had other things to take care of. Now, be a good girl and start packing. We need this cleared out by tomorrow." The audacity left me speechless for a moment. They hadn't warned him, hadn't even shown up to honor him, yet they felt entitled to everything we built together. "I'm calling the police," I said, reaching for my phone. Natalie and Ruby exchanged a glance, clearly unprepared for resistance. "Layla," Natalie began, but I cut her off. "You have 5 minutes to leave before I call the cops. This is my home. Aiden and I bought it together, and you have no right to be here." My voice was unwavering, and something in my tone must have struck a nerve as they slowly gathered their belongings. Still, Natalie couldn't resist a final threat as they left. "This isn't over, Layla. Expect a call from our lawyers." The following days were a whirlwind of grief, anxiety, and endless paperwork as I began sorting through Aiden's affairs, wary of Natalie and Ruby's next move. About a week later, I received a call from a local law firm. My heart pounded as I answered, fearing it was the beginning of Natalie's legal threats. "Mrs. Aiden," a professional voice asked. "This is Anthony from Anthony and Partners. I'm calling regarding your late husband's will." "A will?" I whispered, taken aback. Aiden had never mentioned a will. "Yes, he came to us 4 months ago," Mr. Anthony continued. "He was very clear about his intentions." The next morning, I sat across from Mr. Anthony, anxiously waiting to learn the details of Aiden's will. He offered me his condolences and then opened the file. "As I mentioned, your husband drafted a will," he said, and began to read. "I, Aiden, being of sound mind, hereby bequeath all my worldly possessions to my beloved wife, Lila." I gasped, tears filling my eyes. Mr. Anthony continued, "This includes our home, my truck, and all our savings. It is my wish that Leila use these resources to care for herself and her father, Logan, whom I have come to love as my own. Even in death, Aiden was protecting us." Mr. Anthony handed me a letter from Aiden, and with trembling hands, I opened it. "My dearest Layla, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm so sorry for leaving you and Logan. Please know that you two were the best things that ever happened to me. I drafted this will because I knew the nature of my mother and sister, and I didn't want you to worry. I had to ensure that you and Logan would be safeguarded in case something happened to me. You and Logan are my true family, not them. Take good care of each other, live fully, and remember, I'll always be looking out for you. With all my love, Aiden. I held the letter tightly, my tears flowing freely. My father, by my side, placed a comforting hand on my shoulder, tears in his eyes as well. Mr. Anthony allowed us a moment to compose ourselves. Then he informed us that, because of the accident, Aiden's insurance would pay out the full value of his policy. What does that mean? I asked, still choked up. Mr. Anthony gave a gentle smile. It means you'll receive enough money to clear your mortgage and more. As we left the office, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Aiden had indeed taken care of everything. But as we arrived home, I spotted a familiar car nearby. Natalie's sleek sedan. My heart sank. Natalie and Ruby were on our porch, but this time I felt fortified with Aiden's letter in my pocket and his love giving me strength. Layla, Natalie started, her tone overly sweet. We need to talk about Aiden's estate. I stood firm. No, Natalie, we really don't. Aiden left everything to me. It's all legal, and you know why? Because we were his family, not you. Now, please leave. You're trespassing. Natalie was momentarily speechless, and Ruby, looking uneasy, quickly tugged at her arm, urging her to retreat. They left, but I knew they wouldn't give up so easily. In the following weeks, I managed Aiden's affairs, and as promised, the insurance money arrived. It was enough to pay off our mortgage with a bit extra. One afternoon, while sorting through Aiden's things, I discovered a journal in his desk. Inside were his handwritten plans and dreams, including starting a college fund for the children we hope to have. Reading his words, I felt a deep ache for the future we had planned together. That night, I struggled to sleep, haunted by what might have been. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of Aiden, smiling and reassuring me that everything would be okay. I awoke with a strange sense of peace, but the following days brought a new, persistent queasiness. At first, I thought it was stress. But soon, a nagging thought crept in. After a week of wondering, I went to the pharmacy and bought a pregnancy test, my hands shaking as I waited for the result. When I finally looked, 2 distinct blue lines confirmed my suspicion. Overwhelmed, I collapsed onto the bathroom floor, a storm of joy, fear, grief, and hope washing over me. My dad knocked, his voice concerned. Layla, everything okay in there? I opened the door, tears streaming down my cheeks, and held up the test. I'm pregnant, Dad. He pulled me into a tight embrace, comforting me with the same tenderness he had shown me when I was a child. It's okay, he soothed. You're not alone in this. This baby is a blessing, a part of Aiden that will live on. His words resonated deeply. This child was not only a continuation of my love with Aiden, but also a symbol of new beginnings. My fears started to dissolve, replaced by a newfound strength. You're right, I said, wiping away my tears. This baby is a blessing and will be just fine. Dad smiled warmly, his eyes crinkling with affection. That's my girl. Now, let's get something to eat. You're eating for 2 now. As we went to the kitchen, I felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. Dad became my rock, constantly encouraging me as we prepared for the baby's arrival. One sunny afternoon, while I was tending the garden we had built together, a familiar car pulled up, breaking the peaceful moment. It was Natalie and Ruby. They approached the porch with expressions of discomfort and desperation. Layla, Natalie began, her sharp tone now softened by circumstance. We need to talk. We've hit some hard times. Could we possibly stay in your dad's old apartment, just until we get back on our feet? Their audacity stunned me, but I remained calm. I'm sorry, but that's not possible, I said firmly. I don't wish to maintain contact with either of you anymore. Natalie's gaze dropped to my belly, her face twisting with disdain. You're pregnant already, you little? Her words dripped with venom, but I stayed composed, refusing to let her affect me. My personal life is none of your business, I replied calmly. Natalie, realizing she was defeated, huffed in frustration before turning on her heel, pulling Ruby along. As they left, a profound peace washed over me. I had defended my family and upheld my dignity, and I knew, without a doubt, that Aiden would have been proud. My husband had all but abandoned his responsibilities, leaving me to shoulder the overwhelming burden of caring for his ailing father and managing every household chore. Each night, he stayed out until the early hours, barely contributing enough for our living expenses. Though I cherished my career as a nurse, I had resigned from my job to dedicate myself entirely to his father's care. Now, here he was again, asking me for more money. We can't make ends meet on this amount. I told him, it's your responsibility to manage our finances within the budget, but there's a limit. How can you expect more from me when you contribute nothing and disregard everything I'm doing? Aloof and condescending, he shot back, all you do is drain our finances without contributing. You're like a parasite. How dare you say that? I retorted. If I left, you wouldn't last a day. Maybe you should be trying to keep me instead of threatening me. In response, he waved a set of divorce papers in my face, arrogantly declaring he was ready to end our marriage at any time. Tossing the papers at me, he stormed out of the room. I gathered them from the floor, spreading them out before me. A wry smile crossed my face when I read the title, Petition for Divorce. If he thought I'd be devastated, he was mistaken. I was already prepared, having imagined a life beyond his shadow long ago. With a mix of pity and determination, I picked up the phone and dialed my lawyer. My name is Kayla. I was once a nurse at a private hospital, a challenging job with long hours, but it was my calling. Caring for others brought me deep fulfillment. Now, it was time to reclaim the life I had put on hold. At first, my marriage to Vincent was smooth, despite our busy schedules keeping us apart. But things changed drastically when his father, his only living family member, suffered a severe health crisis. Unable to live alone, he needed constant care. Vincent, concerned for his father, asked if I could step in, promising to make up for my lost income by working harder and taking on more responsibilities at home. Reluctant yet understanding, I agreed. I'd always had a good relationship with my father-in-law, a kind and generous man. We moved in with him, and at first, Vincent seemed committed to helping out. We tightened our finances, but we managed. Yet as the months went on, Vincent's promises faded, and he gradually withdrew. He reduced his financial support, became increasingly absent, and left me alone to juggle the household and caregiving duties. With my job gone, our income was halved, and the financial strain grew with every passing day. I found myself balancing the demands of caring for my father-in-law with searching for affordable groceries, often driving long distances just to save a few dollars. Meals became simpler, especially when Vincent wasn't around. Our living arrangement, which once felt manageable, now seemed increasingly unsustainable. Vincent had become entirely detached, spending his earnings freely and leaving all our challenges on my shoulders. Life grew incredibly difficult as I stretched every dollar to its limit. New clothes, trips to the hairdresser, simple luxuries were no longer an option. When the financial strain became unbearable, I approached Vincent for help. About this month's expenses, I started. I already gave you the money, he interrupted sharply. Yes, but it's less than last month, I explained. I can't make ends meet with this. Are you kidding me? Managing the budget is your job, he snapped. But the budget is too tight. Ever since I quit my job, it's been a constant struggle, I pleaded. Please, we need more for the household. He scoffed. It's my hard-earned money. I'll spend it how I want. Just because you were a nurse, you think you're important. Now you're not contributing financially at all. You're just a parasite living off my earnings. So keep quiet and do as I say. His harsh words stung, and his attitude only grew colder each time I tried to bring up our finances. With no other option, I began dipping into my savings for my nursing days. Each month became a battle as I juggled our worsening financial situation and endured Vincent's verbal abuse. Yet in all this hardship, my father-in-law was a bright spot. Despite his own struggles, he was endlessly grateful for even the smallest gestures of care. Aware of our financial strain, he even offered his pension to help. He was a kind soul and became my one source of emotional support. His gratitude and gentle presence gave me the strength to keep going, holding on to his warmth and appreciation when everything felt bleak. But my moments of peace were tragically short-lived. Nearly 3 years into caring for him, my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. That day marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of a profound change in my life. I drove a bit further than usual to the supermarket to take advantage of a special sale. Though I felt uneasy about leaving him alone, he reassured me with a gentle smile and encouraged me not to worry. His warmth and calm words eased my mind, and I left, feeling peaceful, believing he was all right. Tragically, while I was away, he collapsed, and he never recovered. The guilt of not being there haunted me. I replayed that decision to leave him alone over and over, and the tears wouldn't stop. Despite the overwhelming grief, I knew I couldn't live in regret forever. I needed to focus on arranging his funeral. Vincent assumed the role of chief mourner but was more concerned with appearances than actual responsibilities, leaving most of the preparations to me. Given the deep support my father-in-law had offered me, I preferred handling the arrangements myself rather than risk Vincent's neglect. Throwing myself into the funeral planning became a temporary escape from the sorrow. The process was grueling, leaving me feeling drained, but it helped pull me out of my depression, if only for moments. While Vincent barked orders 1 minute and watched TV the next, I focused on honoring my father-in-law's memory. At the funeral, many attendees extended their condolences to Vincent, unaware of the reality behind our struggles. They assumed he had been the primary caregiver, saying things like, "It must have been hard to prepare everything so quickly, and you took really good care of him. He was lucky to have such a devoted son." Their well-meaning words stung. Knowing the truth, I kept my composure, responding gracefully despite feeling exhausted. "It wasn't hard at all," I would reply, masking the truth. "He was like a father to me too, so I did my best for him." I held on to the belief that my care had brought him some comfort in his final years, hoping he'd found peace. Vincent mingled with the guests, flashing a practiced smile and exchanging pleasantries. His friendly facade grated on me, as I knew he had done nothing to prepare for the funeral or to care for his father in his last days. Beneath his superficial charm, the truth remained hidden, leaving me to carry the weight of both sorrow and responsibility alone. I vividly recalled the sadness in my father-in-law's eyes on the nights Vincent would come home late, never bothering to speak a word to him. Now that he was gone, Vincent's pretense of being a devoted son was almost unbearable. My disgust for him grew with each passing day, and it was difficult to shake off, even after the funeral. With my father-in-law no longer here, the one thing that had kept me tolerating our strained marriage was gone. The thought of divorce increasingly crept into my mind, but I was torn. I felt both repelled by him and uncertain about making such a huge decision. I kept procrastinating, held back by the remnants of a life that once held meaning. The routine was all that kept me going. But then, one unexpected incident gave me clarity. One evening, I went to the local supermarket, only to find they were out of a seasoning I needed. Deciding to try a store a bit farther away, I made my purchase and headed outside. That's when I saw Vincent, who was supposed to be at work. Curious and cautious, I kept my distance, watching him. He seemed nervous, glancing around before entering a building with a sign for a consumer finance company hanging above the door, one I recognized but never expected to be involved with us. A chill ran through me, as if I had been plunged into icy water. My whole body reacted, but my mind remained eerily calm, piecing everything together. It dawned on me that not only was Vincent failing to provide enough for our household, but his actions were now leading him into serious financial trouble, without my knowledge. The discovery crystallized everything, the reality of our situation, and the way our lives and values had drifted apart. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Vincent had been borrowing money behind my back. The thought of how deep and long-standing his debts were made my stomach turn. That was the moment the decision was made. I needed a divorce. I could no longer picture a future with someone who kept such major financial secrets from me. My feelings for him evaporated completely. That evening, I waited for him in the living room, the decision weighing heavily on me but clear in my mind. When he finally walked through the door, I didn't hesitate. "Vincent, you're back late." He looked surprised. "Yikes, what are you doing up so early? What's wrong? Can I stay awake?" I asked flatly. "Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to go to bed," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Of course you do. You've been out until now. After all," he dismissed my concerns. "If you're going to be sarcastic, save it. I'm exhausted from working. Unlike you," he snapped. "Right? I'm sorry," I said, my words hollow as the reality of our situation settled in. I paused for a moment to gather my thoughts before speaking. "Actually, I have something important to tell you. Let's get a divorce." Vincent looked at me, stunned. "Ha! What are you saying all of a sudden?" "I've been thinking about it for a while now," I continued calmly. "You've been living off me, and yet you ask how I'll survive after the divorce. You hardly provide enough for me to live on as it is. Besides, as a nurse, I managed before, and I can manage again. If money is such an issue, then yes, I think a divorce is the best step." He stood frozen, speechless, before locking himself in the bedroom. The next day, true to his word, albeit reluctantly, he took a day off and accompanied me to our lawyer. He signed the divorce petition with a heavy thud on the lawyer's desk. Our separation turned out to be simpler than I had expected. Throughout it all, Vincent kept muttering about regret, but I chose to ignore him. Afterward, I decided to return to my parents' home temporarily. When I explained the situation to them, they offered their full support, encouraging me to move forward. Grateful for their backing, I began packing up my belongings, ready to start anew, free from the weight of a marriage that had become untenable. While sorting through my things, I decided to clean my father-in-law's room one last time. As I went through his chest of drawers, I stumbled upon his will. Curious but composed, I informed Vincent, who, to my surprise, showed an unexpected burst of excitement. He tore open the envelope and eagerly read the contents, his eyes wide. But his enthusiasm quickly shifted to dismay as he read aloud, mumbling about some mistake in the document. From what I could gather, the will left several stocks, which his father had owned to me. Additionally, it included a heartfelt letter expressing gratitude towards me. Vincent, in disbelief, protested, "No, this can't be true. I'm the only son. Normally, I inherit everything, don't I?" "That may be so, but the will clearly states otherwise," I replied calmly. "This is ridiculous. This can't be valid," he sputtered, but the signature on the document was unmistakable. The shock was too much for him. He fainted and collapsed on the floor. I quickly called an ambulance, but as I watched the paramedics take him away, I realized I was already detached from his life. There seemed no reason to delay my departure any longer, so I finished packing and left for my parents' home. Once settled, I reached out to one of Vincent's relatives, who had always been kind to me, to inform her about the divorce. She listened intently, her expression growing more pained as I recounted my story. After I finished, she embraced me warmly, but her demeanor was awkward and troubled. She then revealed, in a hushed voice, that Vincent had accumulated a substantial gambling debt long before we moved in with his father. It had started shortly after we got married. His frequent visits to consumer finance companies had even sparked rumors in our small community. Her revelations added new layers of understanding to the struggles we have faced, confirming that my decision to leave was justified. The support from Vincent's relative was comforting, reaffirming that I was not alone in recognizing the difficulties caused by his actions. It was deeply unsettling to realize that while I had been oblivious, others in our community were well aware of Vincent's financial troubles, and the rumors had been rampant. Before moving in with my father-in-law, my life had been consumed by my job. Afterward, my focus shifted entirely to caregiving, leaving no room for social interactions where such information might have come to light. Meanwhile, Vincent had been misleading everyone, confidently claiming that he would swiftly clear his debts with the inheritance he was certain to receive. It seemed everyone in our circle knew about it, except me. The rumors eventually reached his father, prompting him to draft a will that intentionally excluded Vincent, likely to correct his son's misguided expectations and irresponsible behavior. Vincent, who had recklessly accumulated debts across various quarters, was banking entirely on an inheritance that never materialized. When he realized he would receive nothing, the shock was too much for him, and he fainted. After a brief hospital stay, Vincent was discharged and faced the grim reality of managing his debts alone, scraping by day to day. As for me, I returned to my parents' home, took some time to gather my thoughts and heal, and eventually returned to my nursing career. Being back at work, immersed in a profession I love, has been rejuvenating. For now, I have no interest in thinking about marriage again. My priority is my career, dedicating myself to a job that brings fulfillment and stability. The return to nursing not only marks a return to normalcy but also a step toward rebuilding my independence and focusing on my well-being. Hi, my name is Amy, and I work as a nurse. After another bustling day at the local hospital, a place I'm grateful has no night shifts, I finally arrived home, a bit later than usual. "I'm home," I called out as I stepped through the door. "Welcome back," came the cheerful reply from my daughter Janice. At only 8 years old, Janice spends many afternoons alone, waiting for me to come home. It tugs at my heart, seeing her so self-reliant at such a young age, and I often feel guilty about it. Yet I know I'm lucky compared to some of my colleagues who work erratic hours in facilities with fewer family-friendly schedules. "Where's your dad today?" I asked her, hanging up my coat. "He hasn't come home yet," she replied, a hint of sadness in her voice. It feels like I haven't seen him in forever. My husband, Jack, is a workaholic. He's rarely home, and when he is, it's almost like he's a stranger at the dinner table. On his days off, he's at his mother's house, tending her garden or having dinner with her. Meanwhile, he's missed every one of Janice's soccer games and spelling bees. A reality that's put a strain on our family. I'm sorry you're alone so often, honey, I said, feeling the weight of our situation. It's okay, Mom. You're here every day, and that's enough for me, Janice replied, trying to sound brave. I hugged her, wishing things were different, that we could be a typical family, spending time together every night. Then one day, unexpectedly, Jack came home early. The dinner table was quiet that night until, out of the blue, Jack broke the silence. Hey, why don't we go to Hawaii for the holidays? He said. I was stunned, barely able to believe my ears. After all this time, Jack was suddenly proposing a family trip. We hadn't taken a proper vacation in years. Janice was over the moon. We can go to Hawaii. I want to go. I want to go, she shouted excitedly, her happiness infectious. Reluctantly, I agreed. I had mixed feelings about it, especially when I realized that Jack had planned the trip around his mother Charlotte's birthday. Despite my reservations, I couldn't deny Janice this opportunity. The day of the trip arrived, and both Jack and I were busy with work. We planned to meet at the airport, but my day ran later than expected, and Janice and I barely made it in time, arriving breathless and frazzled. But when we looked around, Jack and Charlotte were nowhere to be seen. Confusion turned to frustration. Where could they have gone? I tried calling Jack's phone, only to get a recorded message saying it was off or out of range. Worried, I approached the airline desk for help. Then a staff member approached me. Are you Amy Martin? She asked. Yes, I replied, startled. I was asked to give this to you, she said, handing me a small note. I unfolded it, feeling a pang of dread as I read Charlotte's scrawled words. It'll just be the two of us on this trip. If you can't be on time, we won't wait for you. Why don't you just camp out somewhere? Bye, Charlotte. My heart sank. Janice looked up at me with wide, anxious eyes. What's wrong, Mom? Trying to shield her from the truth, I forced a smile. Oh, it's nothing, sweetie. It looks like your dad and Grandma went ahead without us. I'm sorry, but it seems we can't go to Hawaii. But can't we get on another flight and go after them? She asked, hope gleaming in her eyes. I hesitated. The cost of a last-minute flight was more than I could afford. Yes, we can try, I replied, hoping my voice sounded convincing. Just then, a commotion nearby caught my attention. An elderly man collapsed a few steps in front of us. Instinctively, I rushed to his side, my nurse training kicking in. His breathing had stopped, and I quickly cleared his airway, finding it blocked by a bit of vomit. Please, someone call an ambulance, I shouted, administering first aid. Paramedics arrived swiftly, and the man was taken to the hospital, where he regained consciousness. Later, he looked up at me and asked, Were you the one who saved me? Well, yes, I replied modestly, a mix of relief and pride filling my heart. I just did what anyone would do, I replied, modestly brushing off the praise. That's not true, Raymond said, a mix of relief and gratitude softening his face. Thank you so much. I thought I was done for. He introduced himself and insisted on showing his appreciation, though I assured him it was all in a day's work. After a few minutes of chatting, Raymond asked, Were you traveling somewhere? His question brought me back to the reality of our situation, and I wondered how best to explain the chaotic turn of events that led us here. Yes, we were supposed to catch a flight to Hawaii, I said, feeling a wave of disappointment. But we missed it. We were already running late because of my work schedule. Raymond's expression grew sympathetic. That's a shame. I bet your daughter was excited, he said, glancing at Janice. Why don't you just get another ticket? Embarrassed, I admitted. The truth is, we can't really afford to buy another one right now. I gave him a small, sad smile, not expecting anything from the conversation. Raymond seemed to consider this for a moment, then nodded with resolve. As a thank you for saving my life, let me buy your tickets. That way, you two can still make your trip. Oh no, I couldn't accept that, I protested, but Raymond was already calling over an airline staff member. After a quick conversation on the phone, he returned, smiling. If I don't thank you properly, I'll never rest easy, he insisted, half joking. Just then, the note from Jack and Charlotte fell from my pocket, slipping away unnoticed in the commotion. Thanks to Raymond's generosity and insistence, Janice and I soon found ourselves on a plane to Hawaii, comfortably seated in business class, an upgrade that made our journey even more enjoyable. When we landed, I realized I hadn't confirmed where Jack and Charlotte were staying, a nagging oversight as we collected our luggage. As we exited the terminal, a man approached us. "Hello, are you Amy and Janice?" he asked warmly. Yes, that's right," I replied, surprised. "Nice to meet you," he said, handing me a business card bearing the logo of a well-known logistics company, sparking my curiosity. "The chairman of our company wanted to make sure you were taken care of," he continued, smiling. My eyes widened. "The elderly man I helped, he's the chairman." The man nodded. "Yes, thank you very much for what you did for him." I was stunned. It hadn't even crossed my mind that Raymond, the kind man we'd helped at the airport, was the chairman of a major company. The realization left me a little dazed as he continued, "We'll be taking you both to your hotel now, as per the chairman's instructions. Please enjoy your trip to Hawaii." A sleek black limousine awaited us, and as we stepped outside, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I'd never been in such an elegant vehicle before, and I found myself checking my shoes, making sure they were clean before climbing in. Janice's eyes sparkled as she took in the plush, luxurious interior. "Wow, this is amazing," she exclaimed, her excitement infectious. As we drove through Hawaii's breathtaking landscapes, the views unfolding through the limousine windows seemed like scenes from a dream. Palm trees swayed against a perfect sky, and the air seemed to hum with that eternal summer feeling. After the chaotic start to our journey, I felt deeply grateful to have made it here, and Janice was captivated, her face pressed against the glass as she took in every detail. When we finally arrived at the Grand Hotel, its opulent exterior took my breath away. But as we approached the entrance, a sudden worry hit me. "Oh no, I didn't book a room," I murmured, concerned about the oversight. The man accompanying us quickly reassured me. "No need to worry. We've already reserved a room for you on the top floor." I hesitated. "But I don't have the money for this," I confessed, my anxiety returning. He smiled reassuringly. "It's all taken care of. The chairman insists." I was overwhelmed by Raymond's generosity, and the VIP treatment felt like stepping into a dream. When we entered the hotel and were shown to our room, it turned out to be a lavish suite with an expansive view of the ocean, its vast windows framing a spectacular sunset. It was as if the whole room was a luxurious retreat, more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen. Janice and I stood in awe, gazing out at the stunning scene, filled with gratitude for this unexpected kindness that had transformed our trip into an unforgettable adventure. During our stay, we were assigned a dedicated staff member who was always available to help with any need. Each meal was a work of art. On one memorable evening, they prepared an exquisite steak right before us, turning dinner into a culinary performance that left us speechless. After such a lavish meal, Janice and I wandered around the hotel lobby, admiring the decor, when we suddenly heard a commotion nearby. Drawn by the raised voices, we moved closer to see what was happening, and to my surprise, I saw my husband Jack and my mother-in-law Charlotte in a heated exchange with the hotel staff. Confused, I called out, "Hey, what are you both doing here?" They turned, equally shocked. "Amy, why are you here?" Jack asked, his voice tinged with confusion. "We came here as planned," I replied, feeling my own confusion rise. "But why did you send that harsh note? You were the one who suggested this trip." Jack glanced at Charlotte, as if searching for backup, but then faltered. "Well, you were late. It's your fault," he stammered, trying to justify. Anger and sadness welled up in me. Yes, we were late, but telling us to just camp out was uncalled for. That wasn't right. Charlotte stood by, unmoved, which only deepened my sense of betrayal. Turning back to the hotel staff, I asked, "What's going on here?" Jack looked frustrated as he explained, "They won't let us check in. I don't understand why." Sensing we needed answers, I addressed the hotel staff member directly. "Is there a problem?" The staff member's tone turned serious. "We were informed that these individuals abandoned our important guests, your daughter and yourself. As per our instructions, we're not permitted to offer them accommodations." In an instant, the pieces fell into place. Raymond's influence was clear. As the chairman of a major company and a man of strong principles, he'd evidently taken a protective stance toward us. Jack and Charlotte's faces reflected both shock and confusion as they began to understand the depth of Raymond's involvement. "What is going on here?" Jack muttered, looking both bewildered and uneasy. It's a long story, I explained, but essentially, Raymond's making it clear he won't tolerate what you did to us. This trip had taken an unexpected turn, revealing complexities in our relationships, and a surprising ally. Jack shook his head, clearly puzzled. Who even knows about all that? Reaching into my bag, I pulled out Raymond's business card, the one given to me when we arrived. Jack's face drained of color as he read the name. This is from a major client of mine, he stammered, his hands beginning to shake. Charlotte turned pale too. Are you saying you know the chairman of this company? Yes, I replied. I helped him when he collapsed at the airport, and to thank us he booked our flight and this hotel. Charlotte's face lost all color, and she seemed to sway on her feet. Mom, are you okay? Jack asked, reaching out to steady her. I approached cautiously, concerned despite the tension. He's in the same gym club as me, Raymond explained. I see him occasionally, and everyone there respects him. But what a coincidence this is. Charlotte was visibly shaken by the unexpected connection, while Jack simply nodded, stunned. Such a small world, he murmured, feeling the weight of it all. Before this encounter, I had no idea there was any link between Raymond and Charlotte, but when Raymond had discovered the note I dropped at the airport, it became clear. He picked it up and read it, his expression shifting to disbelief. Amy, what on earth is this? He'd asked, his voice mixing shock and disapproval. Hesitantly, I explained how Jack and Charlotte had left us behind. His reaction had been immediate. How horrible, unforgivable, he declared, his tone leaving no room for doubt. From then on, his actions reflected a clear stance on our situation. As Raymond pieced together the details, he asked, Is your mother-in-law's last name Martin? Charlotte Martin? Yes, that's her, I confirmed, still reeling from the series of revelations. Raymond nodded, saying he knew Charlotte from his gym and expressing his disbelief that she would abandon family. Turning back to Jack and Charlotte, I couldn't suppress a smirk at the irony. Well, since you two plan to go on this trip together, I guess Janice and I will just enjoy it on our own, I said. Charlotte, maybe you could camp out here for a night under the Hawaiian stars. How's that sound? That's terrible. You're the rudest person ever. They protested, clearly missing the irony of having their own words thrown back at them. They called me rude, yet it was their dismissive message that had started this. I chuckled, taking Janice's hand. Let's go, I said, leaving them behind as the hotel staff firmly turned them away. We don't have rooms for you both at this hotel, they were told, finally forced to leave. And so Janice and I enjoyed our trip, just the two of us. The bond between Janice and her father was nearly severed, and I felt no urgency to repair it. Raymond's kindness in making this vacation possible had turned what began as a troubling experience into a beautiful adventure, one that refreshed and delighted us both. When we returned home, we were full of gratitude and happy memories. Jack, however, returned looking exhausted and defeated. As it turned out, Raymond's influence extended further than I'd imagined. No hotel in Hawaii had been willing to take them in, leaving Jack and Charlotte to camp outdoors. Jack also faced repercussions at work when his boss informed him that Raymond's company was considering canceling their contract due to his behavior. Meanwhile, Charlotte's gym friends grew distant, treating her coldly enough that she eventually left the club altogether. Once dedicated to fitness, she now spent her days in front of the television, a shadow of her former self. This ordeal made it clear that our marriage was over. We decided to divorce, with Janice's custody naturally going to me. I didn't seek alimony or child support, confident in my ability to support her on my own. It all felt surreal, as if fate itself had guided these events. Being late to the airport that day had led me to meet Raymond, an acquaintance of Charlotte's, and that simple act of kindness had brought us an unforgettable vacation. Looking back, I felt no regrets. Jack's priorities had always clashed with mine, often putting Charlotte's needs above ours. Now, with Janice by my side, I felt complete. The joy she brought me outweighed any sorrow from the past, and together, we looked forward to a happy, fulfilling future. Just the two of us. I met John shortly after graduating from college. He swept me off my feet with his charm and ambition, and before I knew it, we were married and living in the small apartment he had purchased before our wedding. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and I loved every inch of it. Soon after, our daughter Sarah was born, perfect, with John's blue eyes and my curly hair. It felt like we had everything: a loving family, a cozy home, and promising careers ahead of us. I started working as a secretary at a small but growing company. The pay wasn't great, but I enjoyed the work and got along with my coworkers. John, on the other hand, was making strides at his construction firm. He'd come home with stories about big projects and even bigger deals. I was proud of him, even though his long hours often meant I was alone with Sarah. But over time, something in John changed. He'd come home late, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Who called?" he'd demand. "Why were you all dressed up?" At first, I laughed it off, but soon his jealousy became suffocating. One night, after a long interrogation about a work event, I snapped, "You think I'm cheating?" "With who, John?" "The mailman." He didn't crack a smile. "Don't play dumb, Kelly. I see how men look at you. And your boss, he's happily married with 3 kids. I cut him off, desperate. "For God's sake, John, I'm your wife. I love you." But my words fell on deaf ears. The arguments became more frequent, each one chipping away at our marriage. I had always been faithful, always would be, but his distress was poisoning everything. Through it all, Sarah remained blissfully unaware. At 10, her world revolved around school, friends, and her iPad. I tried to shield her from our fights, but kids always know more than we think. The irony wasn't lost on me. John was the one always coming home late, always going on business trips. If anyone had reason to be suspicious, it was me. But I trusted him. I believed in our vows, in our love. Why couldn't he do the same? One night, after a particularly nasty fight, I found myself lying awake, staring at the ceiling. John's soft snores filled the room, but I felt a million miles away from him. How had we gotten here? When had love turned into suspicion? Trust into accusation? I thought about leaving, about taking Sarah and starting over. But where would we go? What kind of life could I give her on a secretary's salary? And despite everything, I still loved John, the man he used to be, the man I hoped he could be again. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, life threw me another curveball. My mom, the rock I'd always leaned on, had a stroke. It came out of nowhere, leaving us all reeling. Mom had always been healthy, throwing herself into gardening and book clubs after Dad's death. She lived in a gorgeous house in the fancy part of town, courtesy of Dad's life insurance and smart investments. I used to joke that she was living the life of a retired movie star. But that Tuesday morning changed everything. I got the call at work. Mom couldn't speak, couldn't move her left side. I rushed to the hospital, my heart in my throat. The next few weeks were a blur of hospitals, doctors, and terrifying medical jargon. I visited every top clinic in the area, desperate for someone to tell me that Mom would be okay. But the prognosis wasn't good. The stroke had left her bedridden, needing round-the-clock care. I was overwhelmed. How could I take care of Mom, manage my job, look after Sarah, and deal with John's jealousy all at once? It felt like drowning in slow motion. Then, out of the blue, John suggested something. "We should move into your mom's house," he said one night over dinner. I nearly choked on my pasta. "What?" "Think about it, Kelly," he continued, his eyes lighting up. "It's a great house in a fantastic neighborhood. Sarah would have her own room, maybe even a playroom. Your mom needs care, and you'd be right there. Plus, we could rent out this apartment for some extra cash." I had to admit, it made sense. Mom's house was far nicer than our apartment, and the idea of not having to commute to take care of her was appealing. But still, it felt weird. "I don't know, John. It's Mom's house. We can't just barge in," he insisted. "I bet she'd love the company. It's better than a nursing home, right?" He had a point. Mom had always made it clear she didn't want to end up in a nursing home. Maybe this could work. The next day, I brought up the idea with Mom. To my surprise, her face lit up at the suggestion. "Oh, Kelly," she said, her voice weak but excited. "I'd love that. This old house needs some life in it again." And just like that, it was decided. We were moving into Mom's house. As I started packing up our apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something big. But I didn't know if it would be good or bad. John was over the moon about the move. He kept talking about the garden he'd plant, the man cave he'd set up in the basement. Even Sarah seemed excited about having a bigger room. Moving into Mom's house brought a whole new set of challenges. Taking care of a stroke patient was a full-time job, one I wasn't equipped to handle on my own. After a week of sleepless nights and stress-filled days, I hired a nurse to help during the day. Nurse Jenny was a godsend. She arrived every morning at 8 and stayed until 6, taking care of Mom's basic needs. But evenings and nights were all on me. I'd come home from work, exhausted, only to start my second shift as Mom's caretaker. The stroke had affected her speech, leaving her frustrated and often silent. I'd change her diaper, giving her as much dignity as I could. Then came the sponge bath, the massage to keep her muscles from atrophying, the meds, and finally dinner. It was grueling work, both physically and emotionally. Seeing my vibrant, independent mother reduced to this state broke my heart every day. But I did it because I loved her, because she would have done the same for me. What I didn't expect was Sarah's reaction to her grandmother's condition. At 11, I thought she'd be old enough to understand, to help out even. But boy, was I wrong. One evening, as I was heading to Mom's room, I saw Sarah dart past me, her hand clamped firmly over her nose. "Sarah," I called out, "where are you going? Don't you want to say hi to Grandma?" She shook her head violently. "No way. It smells gross in there." I was taken aback. "Sarah, that's not a nice thing to say. Grandma needs our help and support right now." "I don't care," she spat back, her voice full of disdain. "She's disgusting. I'm not going near her." Before I could say anything else, she stormed off to her room, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, stunned and hurt, trying to process what had just happened. Where had my sweet little girl gone? I turned to John for support, but when I needed him most, I found nothing. "Not my problem," he would say every time I asked for help with Mom. "I didn't sign up for this." It stung, but I couldn't entirely blame him. None of us had signed up for this life. Still, as I watched him play video games with Sarah or take her out for ice cream while I was elbow deep in adult diapers and medication schedules, I couldn't help but feel resentful. The one silver lining, though, was seeing how close John and Sarah had become. They'd always had a good relationship, but now it seemed even stronger. I'd hear them laughing together in the living room or see them huddled over Sarah's homework at the kitchen table. It warmed my heart, even as it made me feel more isolated. 2 years passed in a blur of bedpans, medications, and stolen moments of sleep. Mom's condition had stabilized, but she still required constant care. I was exhausted, but I had found a rhythm, just barely. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, everything fell apart. The phone rang while I was changing Mom's sheets. It was Mrs. Peterson, our old neighbor from the apartment complex. "Kelly, dear," she said, her voice laced with concern. "I thought you should know. I've been seeing John around quite a bit with a company of young women, different ones, always very pretty." I thanked her and hung up, my mind reeling. That night, I confronted John. "Oh, those are just potential tenants," he said smoothly, brushing me off, and showing them the apartment. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the seed of doubt had already been planted, and it was growing like a weed. A week later, I found the lipstick stain. It was on the collar of his white shirt, a perfect crimson kiss. My hand shook as I held it up to the light, trying to convince myself it was just a pen mark or a food stain. But deep down, I knew better. I waited until his next business trip to make my move. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door to our old apartment. The sounds coming from the bedroom confirmed my worst fears before I'd even opened the door. There was John in our bed, with a woman I'd never seen before. They scrambled to cover themselves, but the damage was done. "What are you doing here?" John exclaimed, not even having the decency to look ashamed. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at the scene before me, feeling my world crumble around me. "Look, Kelly," he said coldly, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but let's be honest. I'm bored. You're always busy with your mom. This is exciting." His words cut deeper than any knife. Without a word, I turned and left, my mind already racing toward what I needed to do next. The divorce proceedings were ugly. John fought me every step of the way. But in the end, we stood before a judge dividing up our life together as if it were nothing more than assets on a balance sheet. Then came the hardest part, custody of Sarah. At 12, Sarah was old enough to have a say, and her choice broke my heart. "I want to live with Dad," she declared, her voice steady. "I don't want to be around Grandma anymore. It's gross and depressing, and Mom's always trying to make me help." The judge nodded sympathetically, taking into account John's higher income, the stability he could provide, and Sarah's clear preference. In the end, John was awarded primary custody. I was devastated, but I tried to focus on what was best for Sarah. John could offer her opportunities I couldn't: private school, dance lessons, summer camps. We agreed on weekends and holidays for me, a schedule that looked neat and tidy on paper but felt like a gaping wound in my heart as I watched Sarah pack her things, excitedly chatting about her new room at Dad's. I felt like I was losing everything. My marriage was over. My daughter was leaving, and I was left with a house that felt more like a hospital than a home. The first few months after the divorce were tough, but I clung to my weekends with Sarah like a lifeline. We'd go to the movies, have ice cream in the park, or just hang out at home. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Then, slowly, things began to change. Sarah started canceling plans. "I have a sleepover," she'd say. "Dad's taking me to a concert." I tried to be understanding, to be the cool mom who didn't make a fuss, but each cancellation felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Soon, the cancellations became more frequent. Weeks would go by without a visit. My calls went straight to voicemail, and text messages were met with one-word responses, if I got any response at all. One Sunday, after yet another canceled visit, I decided to call Sarah directly. The phone rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. I tried again. This time, a robotic voice informed me that the number I was trying to reach had blocked my calls. My hand shook as I dialed John's number. "What do you want, Kelly?" His voice was cold, annoyed. "John, I can't reach Sarah. She's blocked my number. What's going on?" There was a long pause. "Look, Kelly, Sarah doesn't want to talk to you right now. You need to respect that. She's my daughter. She's also a person with her own feelings," John shot back. "And right now, she doesn't want to be around all that negativity at your place. I mean, the sickness, the sadness. Sarah needs stability. She needs a normal family. She sees Lisa as a mother figure now. She's got a normal life here, 2 parents, no sick relatives, no drama. Why can't you just let her be happy?" I couldn't speak. Tears streamed down my face, and I was thankful John couldn't see me. "Look," he continued, his voice softening slightly. "I know this is hard, but if Sarah doesn't want to see you right now, you need to respect that. Don't force it. It'll only push her away more." I wanted to scream, to argue, to demand my rights as a mother, but a small, rational part of my brain whispered that he might be right. If I pushed too hard, I might lose Sarah forever. I sank to the floor, phone clutched to my chest, and sobbed. My little girl, my Sarah, didn't want me anymore. Someone else was being her mother, kissing her goodnight, helping with homework, sharing the moments I was missing. Mom found me hours later, still on the floor. She'd managed to shuffle over with her walker, her face creased with concern. "Kelly," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I looked up at her, this woman who'd been my rock for so long, who I'd been taking care of for years. In that moment, our roles reversed again. I was the child, seeking comfort from my mother. "Oh, Mom," I cried, reaching for her hand. "I've lost her. I've lost my baby girl." Mom squeezed my hand, her touch still weak but full of love. "No, Kelly, you haven't lost her. She's just lost right now. She'll find her way back to you. You'll see." 14 years, it's amazing how time can fly by and drag on simultaneously. Mom's condition improved slightly over the years. She regained some mobility and speech, but caring for her remained a full-time job. When she passed away peacefully in her sleep, I felt a mixture of grief and shamefully relief. Suddenly, I found myself alone in this big, empty house. The silence was deafening. No more beeping medical equipment. No more schedules for medications and therapy sessions. Just me, rattling around in rooms full of memories. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice, I'd know it anywhere. "Mom, it's Sarah. I was hoping we could meet to talk." We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown. As I waited, my hand shook around my coffee cup. I spotted a young woman entering. It took me a moment to realize it was Sarah. Gone was the gangly preteen I remembered. In her place stood a poised, beautiful young woman. "Hi, Mom," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. We made awkward small talk at first. She filled me in on her life, her job in marketing, her hobbies, her friends. Then she dropped the bombshell. "I'm getting married," she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "Here's an invitation." My heart swelled with joy and a tinge of sadness. My little girl, getting married, and I'd missed so much. "Oh, Sarah, that's wonderful news. I'm so happy for you." She cut me off abruptly. "Actually, Mom, that's kind of why I wanted to meet. I was hoping to talk about Grandma's inheritance. The house, her savings. I want them." I felt like I'd been slapped. Excuse me. Look, Mom, she said, leaning forward. That house is in a great area. It's worth a fortune. After the wedding, Jake and I want to live there. Start our family there. Anger bubbled up inside me. Sarah, you haven't set foot in that house in over a decade. You said it disgusted you. You called it a tomb. She waved her hand dismissively. I was just a kid then. But I've grown up now. Times have changed, and let's face it, I'm Grandma's only grandchild. She would have wanted me to have the house. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Wanted you to have it, Sarah. You didn't even come to her funeral. You didn't call or write for years. That's ancient history, she snapped. The point is that house should be mine. I deserve a comfortable life. Deserve? I asked, my voice shaking with rage. You didn't lift a finger to help when Grandma was sick. I gave up my life to care for her. And now you think you deserve her house. Sarah's face hardened. Fine, if that's how you want to play it, I'll sue. I'll get what's rightfully mine. She stood up abruptly, snatching the wedding invitation off the table. You know what? Forget it. You're not invited to the wedding. I don't need your negativity there, and I don't need your permission to take what's mine. I sat there, stunned. The daughter I had loved, missed, and longed for all these years was gone. In her place stood a stranger, cold, greedy, and unrecognizable. The days that followed our disastrous meeting passed in a blur of anger, grief, and a deep, numbing emptiness. But as time wore on, something unexpected happened. I felt relieved. The heavy weight of hoping for reconciliation, of longing for a relationship with Sarah, seemed to lift. In its place, there was a strange sort of peace. I didn't attend Sarah's wedding. I didn't send a gift or a card. Instead, I spent the day volunteering at a local animal shelter, finding comfort in the unconditional love of abandoned pets who needed care. It felt fitting somehow. Curiosity got the better of me a few days later, and I found myself scrolling through Sarah's social media. There she was, radiant in white, smiling up at her new husband. For a moment, my heart clenched with the pain of what might have been. But then I saw it. A long, rambling post about her cruel mother who refused to attend the wedding and withheld her rightful inheritance out of spite. I read it twice, marveling at the sheer audacity of her lies. Part of me wanted to comment, to set the record straight, but what was the point? The people who mattered, my family, those who had seen me care for Mom all those years, knew the truth. As for everyone else, well, their opinions, based on a stranger's social media posts, weren't my concern. A week later, my cousin Jeannie called. Callie, I thought you should know, she said, her voice a mix of anger and concern. Sarah's been talking about suing you for your mom's estate. I sighed, not surprised. Let her try. That's just it, Jeannie continued. Apparently, she talked to a lawyer. He told her she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Your mom left everything to you, clear as day. I chuckled. Of course, Mom had made sure of that. She was always the practical one. Thanks for letting me know, Jeannie, I said. But honestly, I don't care what Sarah does anymore. She's made her choices. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Jeannie said, I'm proud of you, Kelly. After everything you've been through, you deserve some peace. As I hung up the phone, I looked around the house. Mom's house, now my house. Every corner held memories, some painful, some beautiful. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe here. I walked to the window, looking out at the garden Mom had loved so much. It had gotten a bit overgrown in recent years, but I could still see its potential. Maybe it was time to bring some life back to it. As I stood there, planning my next trip to the garden center, I realized something. The chapter of my life that revolved around Sarah, the hope, the pain, the longing, was finally closing. But that didn't mean my story was over. Far from it. The garden was in full bloom when the call came. I had spent the past few months throwing myself into its restoration, finding solace in the simple act of nurturing life. The roses Mom had loved so much were just starting to open, their scent filling the air. As I pruned the bushes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the green button. Hello. Mom. Sarah's voice, thick with tears. Mom, I need your help. I froze, the pruning shears still in my hand. Sarah, what's wrong? I'm pregnant, she sobbed, and we're struggling. Mom, I need money. You have to help me. You can't leave your grandchild without anything. I listened silently as her words became more frantic, more accusatory. You abandoned me, Mom. You never tried to contact me, never fought for me, And now you're going to abandon your grandchild too. Something inside me snapped, not with anger, but with calm, unshakable resolve. Sarah, I said, my voice steady. That's enough. She fell silent, probably shocked that I had interrupted her tirade. I never abandoned you, I said. I sent child support every month without fail. I called, I texted, I emailed. You blocked my number. You chose your stepmother. You made your decisions and I respected them, even when it broke my heart. Mom, no. I'm not finished, I said, cutting her off. You're an adult now, about to be a parent yourself. It's time you took responsibility for your choices and your life. I'm not your bank. I'm not your safety net. And I'm not going to be manipulated by lies and guilt trips. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. If you need help, go to your father and stepmother. They're your real family now. Remember, the ones you chose. I took a deep breath. I've made my peace with that. Now you need to make peace with the consequences of your choices. You can't do this, Sarah cried. I'm your daughter. Yes, you are, I said, my voice softening slightly, and I'll always love the little girl you were. But I don't know the woman you've become, and I don't think I want to. I took another deep breath. Goodbye, Sarah. I wish you and your child well. But please, don't contact me again. I ended the call before she could respond. My hand shook slightly as I lowered the phone. For a moment, I stood there in the garden, surrounded by the life I had nurtured, feeling the weight of what had just happened. But then, slowly, I felt a lift. The last ties binding me to a painful past had been cut. The last what-ifs laid to rest. I looked around at the garden, at the house beyond. This was my life now, not defined by loss or regret, but by the choices I made going forward. I picked up my pruning shears and turned back to the rose bush. There was still work to be done, still beauty to cultivate. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt truly, completely free. I'm Elizabeth, though most people call me Liz or Lizzie. A few call me Betty, but I've never liked that one much. I grew up in what you'd call an ordinary family: mom, dad, and my older sister, Kate. Kate's 7 years older than me, which made a big difference. From as early as I can remember, our house was practically a shrine to Kate. Every wall was covered with photos of her first smile, her first steps, or her scribbled masterpieces that mom and dad treated like fine art. I was there too, but just kind of there. I got used to it, wearing Kate's hand-me-downs, playing with her old toys. It wasn't ideal, but I didn't know anything else. I learned to stay quiet and go with the flow. As time went on, the pattern held steady. Kate got new clothes. I got her old ones. She received the latest toys. I played with what she'd outgrown. But I never complained. I just existed. When I reached high school, Kate had already moved out for college on a scholarship. I thought maybe, with her gone, my parents would notice me more. But no, it was still all about Kate, her college adventures, her new boyfriend, her bright future. Then one Sunday she burst in, grinning from ear to ear. "Mom, Dad, I'm getting married," she announced, as if she'd just won an award. Mom burst into tears of joy, and Dad whooped with excitement. I just sat there, wondering if anyone realized I was in the room. Kate turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "Lizzie, you'll be my bridesmaid, right?" I forced a smile and nodded. "Sure, Kate, congratulations." As everyone hugged and laughed, I slipped out of the room. No one noticed. They never did. Kate's wedding turned into a huge production. One night, I overheard Mom and Dad whispering in the kitchen. "We'll have to take out a loan," Dad said, sounding worn. "I know," Mom sighed, "but it's Kate's big day. We can't let her down." My stomach twisted. They were going into debt for her wedding. I wanted to point out how absurd this was, but I knew better. My opinions didn't hold much weight here. The wedding was lavish, with Kate looking like a princess and my parents beaming with pride. I stood in my bridesmaid dress, feeling invisible as always. Then, after her honeymoon, Kate dropped another bombshell. "I've decided to be a housewife," she announced at Sunday dinner. "Jack makes enough for both of us." I watched my parents try to hide their concern behind forced smiles. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom said, "if it makes you happy." I wanted to scream. They'd taken on debt for her wedding, and now she wasn't even going to work. But as usual, I kept quiet. Soon enough, Kate was pregnant, with twins. Mom and Dad were overjoyed, spending every free moment doting on Kate and preparing for the babies. Then came the next idea. We should help them buy a house, Mom suggested one night. They'll need the space with 2 babies. Dad nodded. We could make a down payment on that nice place nearby. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Are you serious? I blurted out. You're already in debt from the wedding, and now you want to buy them a house. They looked at me, almost surprised, like they'd forgotten I was there. Elizabeth, Mom said, her tone sharp. This is what family does. We help each other. The twins were born a few months later, 2 little boys as adorable as could be. Mom and Dad spent every moment at Kate's new house, cooing over the babies. Meanwhile, I was finishing high school, thinking about college but wondering how I'd pay for it. Finally, one night, I worked up the courage to ask, Mom, Dad. I'd been looking at colleges. That's nice, dear, Mom said, not glancing up from the photo album she was making of the twins. I took a deep breath. I was wondering, could you help me with tuition? They exchanged that look, the one that meant they'd rather discuss anything else. Dad cleared his throat. Well, sweetie, we'd love to, but with the loan for Kate's wedding and helping with the house, we can cover half, Mom interrupted, as if that was generous. But you'll need to figure out the rest on your own. I felt like I'd been punched. Half. After everything they'd done for Kate, half was all they could offer me. But I knew it was pointless to argue. Okay, I said softly, thanks. As I turned to walk back to my room, I heard them resume chatting about the twins' latest adorable antics. Closing my door, I leaned against it and for the first time in years, let myself cry. I ended up enrolling in the local community college, not my dream, but the only option I could afford. To cover the gap, I took a part-time job at a nearby diner. Balancing classes and waiting tables was exhausting. Most nights, I came home dead on my feet, dreaming only of collapsing into bed. But even that small comfort was often snatched away. It started one Friday evening. I'd just finished a grueling shift and was looking forward to face-planting into my pillow when I walked in to find Kate in the living room, the twins crawling around her feet. Oh, Lizzie, she exclaimed. Thank God you're here. I'm at my wit's end with these 2. Can you watch them for a bit? Jack and I haven't had a date night in ages. Before I could respond, she'd slipped out the door, leaving me with 2 screaming toddlers. What the hell? I muttered, staring down at my nephews. Don't get me wrong, I love the little terrors. But this wasn't what I'd signed up for. Mom wandered in from the kitchen. Your sister's exhausted, honey. This is what family does. Besides, it'll be good practice for when you have your own kids. Kids? I was barely keeping my head above water as it was. This became the new normal. Every weekend, without fail, Kate would drop off the twins and vanish. Sometimes for errands, other times to grab dinner or catch a movie with Jack. And every weekend, I ended up as the unasked babysitter. One Saturday, after a week from hell with midterms, I had enough. Kate had just breezed out the door, leaving the twins mid-tantrum. I turned to Mom and Dad, my voice shaky. This isn't fair. I'm exhausted. I work, I study, and now I'm expected to give up my weekends too. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. Lizzie, your sister needs the help. You should be glad to do it. But what about what I need? I protested. I'm running myself ragged here. Mom sighed. Elizabeth, don't be selfish. Kate has 2 kids. You don't know how hard that is. I gave up. It was clear they weren't going to listen. So I resigned myself to my new reality. Classes during the week, work in the evenings, and unpaid babysitting on weekends. A personal life? That was a joke. The closest thing I had to a social life was small talk with customers at the diner. Dates? Forget it. Between work, school, and watching the twins, I barely had time to shower, let alone meet someone. I was at my breaking point. The constant juggling of school, work, and forced babysitting left me drained, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I needed a real break, a genuine escape from everything and everyone. So one evening, I made an announcement. Mom, Dad, I'm taking a few days off and going to the beach. The response surprised me. For once, they actually seemed supportive. That's wonderful, Lizzie, Mom said, looking genuinely happy. Where are you staying? I told them about a modest motel I'd found online right by the ocean. Nothing fancy, but it was all I could afford. Dad nodded approvingly. Good for you, kiddo. You deserve a break. I nearly did a double take. Were they actually acknowledging my need for rest? The day finally arrived. I packed my bag, hopped on a bus, and felt the weight lifting from my shoulders with every mile that passed. When I arrived at the coast, I could hardly believe my luck. The motel was small and a bit rundown, but the view of the ocean was breathtaking. I dropped my bag in the room and headed straight for the beach, inhaling the salty air. For the first time in months, I felt like I could truly breathe. I treated myself to lunch at a little seaside cafe, savoring each bite. No screaming kids, no assignments, no customers. Just me, my thoughts, and the calming sound of the waves. As the sun began to set, I returned to the motel, ready for a night of peaceful solitude. But as I approached my room, I heard familiar voices. "Surprise, Lizzie." I froze. There, outside the room next to mine, were Mom and Kate, with the twins running in circles around them. "What? What are you doing here?" I stammered, my heart sinking. "We couldn't let you be all alone on vacation," Mom chirped. "We thought we'd surprise you. We're right next door." They'd booked one of the nicer rooms, I noticed, while I was in the budget option. Before I could fully process what was happening, Kate was already pushing the twins toward me. "The boys have been dying to see the ocean. You don't mind watching them for a bit, do you? I want to take a walk on the beach. And I need to run to the store," Mom added. "We'll be back soon." Just like that, they disappeared, leaving me with two hyperactive 3-year-olds tugging at my hands. What followed was nothing short of chaos. The twins tore through my tiny room like miniature tornadoes, ripping curtains, breaking glasses, and somehow managing to clog the toilet with apples. I ended up shelling out money I didn't have for repairs and to call a plumber. By the end of the weekend, I was more exhausted than ever. The final straw came when Kate, oblivious, sighed and complained about how tired she was from all the traveling. I finally lost it. The argument that erupted was epic. I yelled, Mom cried, Kate sulked, and the twins screamed in the background. That night, I packed my bags, determined to leave, and caught the first bus home in the morning. As the coastline slipped away, a shift happened inside me. This couldn't go on. Something had to change. When I dragged myself through the front door, exhaustion heavy on my shoulders, Dad barely looked up from the TV. I trudged to my room, mind swirling with emotions and vague plans. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I was halfway through packing when I heard the front door slam. "Elizabeth, where are you?" Mom's voice rang through the house, sharp and irritated. She stormed into my room, face flushed with anger. "I can't believe you just left us there. Do you know how hard it was to manage the twins on our own?" I got back the urge to remind her that I'd been managing the twins alone countless times before. Instead, I just kept packing. Mom's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "I'm leaving," I replied, voice steady. "I'm moving out. I need my own life." Their reactions were swift and predictable. "How could you be so selfish?" Mom cried. "After everything we've done for you." Dad's face went red. "You ungrateful girl. Have you thought about your sister? Who's going to help her with the twins?" Something snapped inside me. My sister. What about me? When has anyone in this family ever thought about what I need? Mom gasped, and I continued. "Kate has a husband. Let him help with the kids. I need to focus on my own life." Dad glared. "If you walk out that door, don't expect us to keep paying for your college. You'll be on your own." I looked at them, these people who were supposed to love and support me, and realized they were strangers. "Fine," I said, zipping up my suitcase. "I'd rather be on my own than live like this. No life of my own, just constant demands and screaming kids. I'm done." I pushed past them, dragging my suitcase downstairs. They followed, shouting, but I tuned them out. As I reached the door, Mom made one last attempt. "If you leave now, don't bother coming back." I paused, my hand on the doorknob, then opened the door without looking back. The next few weeks were a blur. I crashed on a friend's couch while searching for a more permanent place. Eventually, I connected with a girl from my study group who needed a roommate. We found a tiny apartment we could just barely afford between the two of us. With my parents cutting me off, I picked up more shifts at the diner, working almost full-time on top of my classes. There were nights I thought I wouldn't make it, when exhaustion was so overwhelming I could barely think. But for the first time, I felt free. No one made demands on my time. No one guilted me into babysitting or expected me to put their needs before my own. The apartment was small, my bed just a mattress on the floor, but it was mine. I threw myself into my studies with a determination I didn't know I had. Every all-nighter, every extra shift, every missed event, it was all for my future. 2 years flew by, and on graduation day, I sat in the auditorium, scanning the crowd. A small part of me hoped to see a familiar face, Mom, Dad, even Kate, but the seats I reserved remained empty. Life after college felt like stepping into a whole new world. I landed a job at a marketing firm, and for the first time in years, I had a steady income that wasn't just scraping by. I rented my own apartment. Nothing fancy, but all mine. No roommates, no family drama. Just peace and quiet, and it was glorious. I started doing all the things I'd missed. Going on dates, making new friends, even having a few short-lived relationships. It was fun to be young and carefree for once. My parents and I kept in touch, barely. We talked maybe once a month, stilted conversations filled with awkward silences and thinly veiled disapproval. They were still sore about me moving out, and I wasn't in a rush to mend fences. Then came my 25th birthday. I had plans with friends, dinner and drinks, nothing wild. But a week before, Mom called. "Elizabeth," she said, her voice oddly cheerful, "we want you to come over for your birthday. The whole family will be there." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Walking into my parents' house was like stepping back in time. Kate and her husband were there, the twins, now 7, running around like little tornadoes, aunts, uncles, and cousins mingling and smiling. "Happy birthday, Lizzie," they chorused as I walked in. I put on a smile, accepting the hugs and well wishes. Then Mom handed me an envelope with a flourish. "This is from all of us," she said, beaming. As I opened the envelope, my stomach sank. Inside was a ticket to a beach resort. "We're all going," Dad announced proudly. "A big family vacation. We've paid for everything." I froze. A family vacation, with the twins. It was my ruined beach trip all over again. I opened my mouth to refuse, but Mom squeezed my arm, whispering harshly, "Don't you dare make a scene, not in front of everyone." So, I forced a smile and thanked them, all while screaming internally. The party wound down, relatives trickled out, and finally, it was just us. Me, Mom, Dad, Kate, and her family. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "I'm not going," I said flatly. "What?" Kate gasped. "But it's a family trip." "Exactly," I replied. "And I'm not interested in spending my vacation babysitting your kids again." Kate burst into tears. "You don't love us at all, do you? You don't care about your nephews." "I care about them just fine," I snapped. "But if I wanted kids, I'd have my own." The argument went in circles. Mom called me ungrateful, Dad looked disappointed, and Kate kept crying, all trying to guilt and pressure me into giving in. Finally, exhausted, I said, "Fine, I'll go." They all looked relieved, like they'd won some great victory, but they had no idea what I had in mind. The day of departure arrived, and I found myself at the airport surrounded by my overly cheerful family. Kate and her husband were practically bouncing with excitement, already making plans for all the alone time they'd have while I watched the twins. "You'll have so much fun with Aunt Lizzie," Kate told the boys, winking at me. "She'll take you to the beach, build sandcastles, maybe even go snorkeling." As we approached the check-in counter, I made my move. "Oh, I need to use the restroom," I said, feigning discomfort. "You guys go ahead and check in. I'll meet you at the gate." They nodded, distracted by luggage and excited children. I watched them get in line, then turned and walked in the opposite direction. My heart pounded as I approached a different check-in counter. I handed over my passport and the ticket I'd bought weeks ago for a flight to a small, peaceful island resort. Once through security, I found a quiet corner and pulled out my phone. With shaking hands, I typed a message to Mom. "I'm not coming with you. I'm going on my own vacation. Enjoy your trip." I hit send and immediately turned off my phone, avoiding the inevitable fallout. When I settled into my seat on the plane, I turned my phone back on briefly. It immediately exploded with notifications, missed calls, voicemails, angry texts. I listened to one voicemail from Mom, her voice shrill and furious. "Elizabeth Morgan, how dare you abandon your family like this? You've ruined everything." Your sister is in tears, her husband is furious. "They were counting on you to watch the boys. You're the most selfish, ungrateful." As the plane took off, I sipped my champagne and gazed out the window. Yes, I felt a pang of guilt, but overwhelmingly, I felt free, like I could finally breathe for the first time in as long as I could remember. I was going on a trip that was just for me. No obligations, no babysitting, no family drama. Just me, the beach, and whatever I decided to do. When I arrived on the small tropical island, the warm breeze greeted me as if to say, "Welcome to freedom." I checked into my resort, a modest but charming place right on the beach. Out of curiosity, I turned my phone back on, and it instantly flooded with hundreds of messages, missed calls, and voicemails. I scrolled through a few with a mix of amusement and trepidation. How could you do this to us? From Mom. You ruined everything. From Kate. You're so selfish. Elizabeth. From Dad. I couldn't help but smile. For once, I'd chosen myself over their demands. I turned the phone off again and locked it in the hotel safe. For the next week, I was unreachable, and what a week it was. I lounged on the beach, read books uninterrupted, went snorkeling, and even tried surfing. I chatted with other vacationers, went on a few casual dates, and stayed out as late as I wanted. No schedule, no responsibilities, no screaming kids. Just me and the rhythm of the waves. Too soon, it was time to head home. I returned to my apartment tanned, rested, and more centered than I felt in years. But the real world was quick to intrude on my newfound peace. The very next day, there was a pounding on my door. I opened it to find Mom and Kate, faces red with anger. How dare you? Mom screeched, barging in without invitation. Do you have any idea what you've done? Kate wasn't far behind. You ruined our entire vacation. The boys were devastated. They launched into a tirade, voices overlapping as they hurled accusations and insults. I was selfish, ungrateful, a terrible daughter and sister. I owed them for the ticket they'd bought for the childcare I hadn't provided. I let them rant for a few minutes, their words washing over me without sticking. Finally, I spoke, calm but firm. That's enough. I don't owe you anything. Not money, not childcare, not my time. I'm an adult, and I get to make my own choices. Mom opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. I'm not discussing this further. Please leave. When you're ready to treat me with respect and have a calm conversation, we can talk. Until then, it's best we don't communicate. They stared, shocked into silence, then stormed out with a few choice words. As the door slammed behind them, I let out a long breath. It hadn't been easy, but it felt right. Over the next few weeks, I made some big changes. I found a new apartment in a different part of town and moved without giving my family my address. I threw myself into my work and picked up new hobbies, painting, yoga, even learning a new language. There were moments of doubt and pangs of guilt, but every time I came home to my peaceful apartment, made plans without worrying about babysitting, or pursued a new interest just for me, I knew I'd made the right choice. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday my family and I will find a way to have a healthy relationship, maybe not. But I do know this. I'll face whatever comes on my own terms, standing tall and unapologetic in the life I've chosen for myself.